Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rankin,
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Celaya,
Here.
Councilmember Hawkins,
Here.
Councilmember Montano,
Here.
Councilmember Walter. Here. Councilmember Woolridge.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight, Councilmember Woolridge will give us the invocation. Will please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your mercy and for your grace. We thank you for this time of gathering. And we pray, Father, that you will be in the midst as we make decisions that will be beneficial for our town. We ask you for understanding, patience, and long-suffering. And we pray, Father, that we will make decisions that will hopefully be pleasing to all parties. And if not, Father, help us to learn to agree to disagree. We thank you for all things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This will be the first call to the public for public comment on issues within the jurisdiction of the Town Council. Council rules limit public comment to 3 minutes. Individual council members may respond to criticism made by those commenting, may ask staff to review a matter raised, or may ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. However, members of the council shall not discuss or take any action on any matter during an open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. I have a slew of requests here. Now, at this time, when I call your name, you can either speak at the call to the public or wait until the agenda item comes up. Randy, Rosine? Just if you want to speak now, let me know. If not, yeah. Rosane. I know where you live.
Mayor, Council, good seeing you guys again. We've been gone most of the summer. I'm not even here to pick on you tonight, so you should be relieved. We're here to announce that next weekend we're doing our 2015 kickoff at the River Bottom Grill, and we're doing an ALS challenge for a good friend of mine by the name of Johnny Meyer. So instead of doing the ice bucket thing that everyone's been doing, we've decided to do a dunk tank. And we've had some gracious volunteers. On Friday, we're starting at 4 with Lisa Garcia, then Jess Knutson at 5, Jim Golion at 6. Then on Saturday at 2 o'clock, if you guys want to come down and throw balls at any of these guys, we got Police Chief Dan Hughes in at 2 o'clock, Damien 2:30 from the Holiday Inn. We got Peter from Mount Athos, he's at 3. We got Mayor Tom Rakins himself in person, dripping wet, at 4 o'clock. And Charles Montoya at 5. And this is a non-political event, so on Sunday we have Florence Copper Project if you guys would like to come down and throw some balls. Anyhow, that's about it. I hope you guys show up. I hope the community participates in this, and it's a good event for a good cause. Thank you much.
Thank you, Randy. Again, that'll be a good time for all of us, maybe. Timothy Hess. You want to speak now or during the topic? Albert Dare. Betty Reefer. Don Pinson. Barbara Suttles. Scott Barber.
Mayor Rankin, members of the public, members of the council. My name is Scott Barber, speaking to you this evening as a board member of the Pinal County Federal Credit Union. One of our other board members, Dodie Freeman, is in attendance this evening as well. Just want to let everyone know that if you've been driving by our new branch location on Pinal Parkway, you know great progress has been made. wanted to let you know that we'll be making that move toward the end of the month, and we'll be opening our new branch on Monday, the 29th of September. On behalf of our CEO, Alice Wilcox, our Florence branch manager, Jennifer Nathaniel, all of our board members, we hope to see you there. We'll be announcing our formal ribbon cutting and grand opening at a later time. Pinal County Federal Credit Union has had a literal standalone presence here in Florence since the first property was purchased in 1971 and the first building was built. So, been a part of the community for a long time, and we believe this new branch location will give us more visibility, help us to serve the public and our members even to a greater degree in the future. So we invite everyone by. It's a great looking facility and it'll serve us for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Charles Goldsmith. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not your honor. To be your honor, you have to be a judge, and to be a judge, you have to be a lawyer, and there is no way that Tom Rankin is going to become a lawyer. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Minato. John Anderson. Damon Anderson. Chris Knutson.
Your Honor and Counsel, my name is Chris Knutson.
Hold it, Chris.
I've been fortunate to work with the youth of Florence the last 7 years, first as principal at Florence High School. And over my 24-year career, I've worked in 6 schools. And out of all the schools I've worked in, no kids are better than what we have right here in Florence. It's a special place. How the school and the town work together for the betterment of this community. And I've been reading in the paper, and I don't know a lot about, the money part of what's coming up, but know that our kids are great kids here, and anything positive that we as a community can do for our kids, we need to look at doing. And I'd like to invite anybody here to come down to Florence High School if you ever want to talk to any kids about this topic of library and aquatic center, because a lot of times we don't listen to our kids, and sometimes maybe we need to a little more. So good luck in this endeavor, and go Gophers.
All right. He doesn't really like to speak in public, I don't think. Lisa, is that timer working?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Alexander Bruin? Thank you. Amanda Celaya? Bill Day? Wilbur Freeman? Sandra Hamburg? Jim Chahida? Jim, I didn't mess your name up too bad, did I?
I have it.
Cheetah. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. The timer's running. Anyway, it's a pleasure to address the council. First, let me thank the council for their efforts on our behalf. I'm sure it's a thankless job. A lot of criticism on many different topics, and maybe sometimes not such great ideas from the public, but a lot of criticism. But anyway, I'd like to, I'm about 65 years in Arizona and about 7 years here in Florence. I live on 6840 West Trenton, here in Florence. I've been involved here down in what I call the core, or the old part of Florence, for a number of years. And the reason I want to address you today is because I want to recognize you and commend you. If we take a tour down Main Street and just walk and look from the south of town, see so many bright spots that have occurred, even within the last 2 years. I think town staff and the town council deserves a lot of credit for that. Buildings painted, a park, a beautiful courthouse. Okay, it doesn't matter who paid for that. But we have a lot of bright spots here, a lot of bright future. So I'd like to thank town staff and town council for making a lot of progress over the last couple of years. Now, there are 2 items on the agenda tonight that I think are really a step in the right direction for our future. And I think it's time that we quit talking silos. This group, that group, I'm in favor, I'm against. We fought long enough. We need to come together as a community. The library and recreational complex is something that has to happen and needs to happen. It's important for our future. The home rule thing cannot be viewed as any means by which to stop it. Cutting the road north and bending it over to Highway 79 is really important. So as we go through these deliberations and public comments, let's keep in mind that we have a bright future in Florence. The future is going to happen, and we need to get ready for it. We need to get ready for it as a community. I want to thank town staff and town council one more time for the progress up till now, but we got a lot more work to do. Thank you.
Thank you. There's some girls, there's chairs right up here in front. It's like some high school kids. Maybe some volleyball players. That's what I thought. Denise Colbert. Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak that didn't turn in a form at the public comment section here? Hearing none, I'll close the call to the public. Lisa? Excuse me, we're going to have to go through some business because that's the way it is until we get to the topic, okay?
I'll make a motion to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and second to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 1 Board. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item 6A, public hearing to receive citizen comment on a feasibility report relating to Merle Ranch Community Facility District Number 1, the district, Assessment Area 7, Units 9B, 16, and 17C, Area 7, and discussion approval disapproval of resolution number MRCFD 129-14, a resolution of the District Board of Merle Ranch Community Facility District Number 1 approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of the 7th Amendment and waivers, Assessment Area 7, Units 9B, 16, and 17C for District Development Finance Participation Waiver and Intergovernmental Agreement, Merle Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1, authorizing and ratifying the giving of notice of public hearing with respect to approval of a feasibility report, which includes identifying public infrastructure of the projects, the area to be benefited, the expected method of financing, and the systems of providing revenues to operate and maintain the projects, all as provided in such report, approving such feasibility report and resolving the intent therefore, ordering the work with respect thereto, approving the assessment diagram and methods of assessment with respect to the Assessment Area 7, and providing for the levy and related assessments. Mr. Mike Farina, your Finance District Director, will give a brief presentation prior to the opening of the public hearing.
Mike?
District Board. This item is to hold a public hearing and to consider adoption of a resolution approving the Assessment Area 7, which is Units 9B, 16, 17C in Merrill Ranch CFD Number 1, and along with it, the feasibility report of the project and the special assessment amount of $728,000. As described in the assessment methodology and the feasibility report, the public infrastructure benefiting Area 7 and constructed or to be constructed total $1,562,747. The improvements consist of storm drain, street improvements, and then related engineering costs. The special assessment amount will pay for a portion of the total cost and will be divided equally among 208 single-family residential lots within Area 7. So the per parcel amount will be $3,500, which will be amortized over a 25-year period. As homes are sold, this amount will be assumed by the home buyer. Also here tonight are Mr. Michael Cafiso and Mr. Paul Gales from Greenberg Traurig, Mr. Mark Reeder, Steve Phil-Nicholas, and Mr. Dan Bono from Pulte. With that, if you could open the public hearing or if there's any questions.
Does any member of the council have anything you'd like, or the board have any questions of Mike? Does any member of the public have anything they'd like to ask on this? Seeing no movement, need a motion?
Make a motion to
No, do we need to open a public hearing, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll open the public hearing. Now you can talk. Seeing none, close the public hearing. Need a motion?
Make a motion to adopt resolution MRCFD 1129-14.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution MRCFD 1129-14. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Make a motion to adjourn from Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1 Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn from Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1 Board. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item 8, presentations. Item 8A, presentation by the Greater Florence Chamber of Commerce recognizing batteries and bulbs as the business of the month.
Good evening, judge and jury. Good evening, Mayor and Councilor. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jim Gloon. I'm with the Florence Chamber of Commerce as a representative of the Greater Florence Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, I would remind everybody to turn their telephones off. Chief? I'm sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
That's okay. The Greater Chamber of Commerce Selection Committee wants to present September's Business of the Month Award. This recipient of this award have demonstrated over the period of time dedication and their support for the Florence Chamber of Commerce. The board member believes there are 6 qualities which brought us here. These qualities include professionalism, teamwork, expertise, passion, reliable, and loyalty. Ladies and gentlemen, please acknowledge September's Business of the Month to Miss Glenda Stewart, Batteries Plus Globe.
Thank you very much, Jim, and actually the City Council. My name is Glenda Stewart. We have been in Casa Grande now since July 15th of last year, and I can't say enough about your chamber and your town because I feel privileged to be here tonight. So we sell any kind of batteries and any kind of bulbs that you can think of, and please come see me in the store. We're located at 1275 East Florence Boulevard, Suite 6, so please come see me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 9, consent agenda. All items indicated by an asterisk will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda unless a member of the council or public objects at the time the agenda item is called. Item A, adoption of Resolution 148014, a resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, accepting non-exclusive roadways easements for the extension of Main Street and authorizing execution by the town manager of supporting documents. Item B, authorization to donate the modular building that was the temporary fire department station number 2 to the City of Phoenix Fire Department. Item number C, authorization to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Town of Winkleman regarding CDBG funds for the 2015-16 funding cycle. Item D, authorization to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Superstition Fire and Medical District for maintenance service for fire apparatus. Item E, approval of the 2014 groundwater savings agreement with Pinal County Water Augmentation and Authority and Maricopa Sandfield Irrigation and Drainage District. Item F, approval of the July 31st, August 4th, and August 18th, 2014 Town Council minutes. Item G, receive and file the following Board and Commission minutes: the April 30th and July 16th Historic District Advisory Commission minutes, and the June 10th and July 16th, 2014 Joint Use Library Advisory Board minutes. Mayor, member of council, that is your consent agenda.
Does any member of the council have anything they wish taken off the consent agenda or questions upon?
I'd like to take off items 9A and 9B.
9A and 9B are off. Any other? Thank you, Jess. Any other? Do you need a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of items A and B.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the exceptions of items A and B. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item A.
Okay. Mark, I just had a question. It didn't say in there the amount, where it was coming from, and when this was going to be occurring.
Mayor, members of the council, thank you for that question. And actually, in this particular item, it is strictly related to the acceptance of the easements from the landowners to build the road. And as far as the road construction is concerned, that is budgeted within the current fiscal year, and the amount is estimated at approximately $700,000, and that was put into the fiscal year, this current fiscal year budget. It was set aside and planned to get done before July 1st.
Okay. Will that need to go out to bid? Do we already know who is going to be our paver?
Councilperson Walters, Wayne Costa, Town of Florence, Public Works. Basically, the road construction itself, due to the amount requested, would be done by the Town of Florence Public Works Department, similar to Plant Road. Very similar to construction of stabilized road base and a chip and seal, a double chip and seal surface with some borrowed ditches for drainage improvements. The state highway work, which is approximately $200,000, which may entail some A-cell and D-cell lanes, will go out for contract, and we have to let an engineering contract do that prior.
Okay. And what area of the budget is that coming out of again? I know it was in a budget that we passed, but what area is it coming out of?
As I recall, it's basically coming out of the general fund.
No.
011.
Councilmember Walter, council members and mayor, it's coming out of the capital projects fund.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Let's go to, we'll go and we'll do item B, and then we'll come back and adopt them or approve them if we decide to on item B, Tara.
Okay, for item B, one of my concerns is that we are moving forward with donating a building that, you know, was valued at $165,000 at a time when, what are we getting in return for it? For example, I know our communications between the police department and the fire department is something that needs some, you know, improvement. And not communication as in you two talking together, I'm talking about the radios that you guys use, especially since we just annexed an additional approximate 4,300 new residents, and we're going to need to expand our services out in that area. I'm not seeing any negotiation going on, and on the flip side of it, why didn't we look at selling it to bring in revenue into the town Because I know that we have residents out there that would have probably paid, you know, $50,000, $60,000 and also paid to move it for us.
Mayor, member of the council, I would like to answer this if you don't mind.
Really?
In 2007, as part of the construction of Anthem area, Pulte donated that trailer for use for the city for a modular for station number 2 so that we could serve that area. At this time, Pulte would like to begin construction on another project. The town of Florence had the choice to move that trailer, or modular, sorry, and bubble wrap it and put it in for a different time and pay the expense to tear down and to locate that trailer or modular and secure a site to be able to store it, or we could donate it to another area that needs to provide fire service. It's been a good fire service modular for us, and what we did was we put out a call. We contacted all the council members to make sure that they wanted to donate the modular. We put out a call on the Arizona listserv, and we put out a notice of who could, one, secure the proper requirements from their council to be able to take the expense to move that modular home. It is going to be, I did get a letter from the city of Phoenix that it's going to be $30,000 or $40,000 to relocate and move that modular for them to be able to utilize it. And so we went on a time constraint to make sure that we were following through with the Anthem area and making sure that we were securing that site. City of Phoenix was the first one who was able to both secure the funding and secure their council's authorization to proceed with the donation. And when the town of Florence gets ready to go with another modular, it is our intent to go out to that developer who we would like to have donated land and also again go through the same model to where they donate a modular to the town of Florence as well to be used for a temporary station.
Any other discussion?
No, as I said, you know, I just wanted to make sure that that was out there, as well as see if there was a way that we could have bartered something back and forth.
Any other discussion on item B? Need a motion to adopt item A and B to the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt items A and B from the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve items A and B from the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item 10, new business. Item A, canvass of the 2014 primary election and discussion approval disapproval of resolution number 1481-14, a resolution of the town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, declaring and adopting the results of the primary election held on August 26, 2014. Mayor and members of council, the town of Florence did hold an election on August 26, 2014. At that election, there were 1,505 ballots cast. The number of mail ballots cast were 1,164, which of that, all were verified, and a total of 12 were considered to be ineligible. Of the provisional ballots voting at the polls, there were 50 provisional ballots and 6 were ineligible. Total votes cast for Mr. Anderson were 529, Mr. Buckley 570, Mr. Carlson 303, Mr. Gilbertson 607, Mrs. Galeen 654, Mr. Villaverdi 465, and Ms. Woolridge 599. With those totals, Mrs. Galeen was said to be elected, and she will be sworn in at the regular time as the rest of the members of council. Those moving on to the November 4th ballot will be John Lee Anderson, Arthur Buckley, Lyle Gilbertson, and Valerie Woolridge. On Proposition 400, we did have 622 votes for the proposition and 667 votes against the proposition. The proposition was defeated. That is your canvass at this time. I'll answer any questions that you do have.
Lisa, how many registered voters are there in Florence?
Just over 4,000. I don't have that exact number. Well, you know what? Let me go into my, if you look at the primary
4,000?
election, it's 4,176.
Yeah.
I did include it, I'm sorry.
And how many voters voted again?
There were 1,505 ballots cast, or we had 36.04% voter turnout.
And that's lower than what it was 2 years ago.
It's interesting because when you look at an election cycle, it is lower than it was 2 years ago. The primary election, if you remember, was the election that they had the state ballot on, and that's the one that we had the 52%. And the mayoral election for the general was 47.3%. But as you know, the mayoral election always has a larger voter turnout. So if you look at the request for council action and you go back through the highlighted in yellow areas, what you will see is that that is the previous, 2010 is the previous election where there was just 3 candidates eligible, seats eligible, and we did have a 33.43%. Prior to that, we had an 8% in 2006, and prior to that, we had a 32.5%. So 36% is consistently in the 30s. It's a little higher than it normally is for this particular election.
But important, everybody votes.
Every vote always counts in every election, especially at the local level.
Does 300 sound about right for the amount that did not vote one way or the other for the home rule?
They say that an undervote is a vote, so people go in every day and make a choice not to vote on a proposition. Why they choose that, I do not know.
But that sounds about the right,
Yes,
about the
if
right
you go
number.
statistically, that sounds about right.
Do you think there was any confusion over the proposition being on the back of some ballots, that people didn't see the backside?
I'm sure that there was confusion, and next time we'll be talking. The town of Florence no longer does any part of the education of the board workers, but when we deal with the county in the future, we will ask them to train the board workers to tell them when they're picking up their ballot to make sure they turn over their ballot. That is something that we had not anticipated.
And always before, we've had a ballot that was presented in the fall that went with a partisan ballot. It was nonpartisan altogether. Now that the consolidated election bill came into effect, we're having to do these elections at the time we're doing the state and federal.
Yes, with the state, with the proposition passing, then the legislation, we have been moved over to the fall election cycle, which means that nonpartisan communities now are required to be on both the primary and the general ballot that are partisan. That is correct.
And on our statutes, we have an all-ballot, or all-mail ballot. Now, do we need to change our statutes to get in compliance with the state?
We have made the selection to do an all-mail ballot by motion each election cycle. Prior, when elections were required to be pre-certified, we would go through the pre-certification process to do an all-mail ballot election. That's no longer required because pre-certifications are not required. And so now that we are with the Pinal County, we no longer have to declare how we're going to do our elections. At the time that we enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the county, we can request an all-mail ballot election, but they have to allow us to be able to do that and then take their IGA to the Board of Supervisors to have it signed off on.
Bill?
Yeah, the other day, I can't remember if I read it in the paper or it was on the news, but there's several municipalities up in the valley that have challenged this. And
those municipalities are considered charter cities, and there was a lawsuit where charter cities went in and challenged the legislation, and it was declared that charter cities do not have to go by, but anyone who is in the general law city, which the town of Florence is, does have to go by the state rules. So that would mean that we are directly affected and we are on the fall cycle.
okay, well, maybe we need to look at becoming a charter community.
I will advise our
It's a thought, you
attorney
know.
to look at that.
Well, I think the point being that people would concentrate on what's going on here rather than going in at the regular election times and having all the other things on the election that takes them away from paying attention to what we're doing. So,
I will say the one thing I did notice more about being on the fall election cycle was that previously there was a lot of civic engagement because local organizations came out and local organizations sponsored candidate forums, and they really engaged the voters more so than the town of Florence because we don't do candidate forums. As being part of this new cycle, what you saw is that there was not very much engagement from the outside because I believe they were probably working on other political type things in the partisan areas. And so we didn't see a lot of candidate forums where the town of Florence would be able to request a spot to do educational training at that point on what type of propositions would be on the ballot. And as you know, every candidate forum that we get a chance to speak at, we like to speak about educating our public about voting and when the elections are going to be, and any type of proposition. We like to do educational sessions on what each one of those propositions does mean.
well, maybe that's something we can study down the road.
Lisa and I went up to and met with Representative Ugenti, who was the main sponsor of this bill. And you might as well went over there and hit your head against the wall to get her to change her mind. I think that we're almost going to have to wait and see what this next general election comes out. Her big deal was it's going to get more people out to vote. Well, if we took a look at the Democratic and the Republican ballots, the Republicans had somebody to vote for in the primaries. The Democrats didn't have any. There was only one contested race in the Democratic, and I think the lack of a primary election for some of the spots on the Democratic side caused some of the Democratic voters not to vote. I think that's also part of the turndown on the outcome. But we'll be watching and maybe having to try to do something else after the general election to see what the voter turnout is, see if we need to get with other communities that experience the same thing as what we have or similar to address it with the state legislature this next upcoming session. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we need a motion.
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 1481-14.
Second.
Where's that at? I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1481-14. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item B.
Item B, discussion approval, disapproval to enter into a design-build contract with Low Mountain Construction establishing the guaranteed maximum price of $12,991,719 for the design, development, and construction of the library recreation complex. Mr. Charles Montoya.
Mayor, Council, to start off, I just want to thank you all for allowing me to delay the project. Unfortunately, it needed to be done at least another 6 weeks so that we could work with Low Mountain and the consultants and our own staff to make sure we kept on getting new information all the time every time the design changed. So at this point, we're coming back to you as the design's pretty much in its final phase. Low Mountain needs direction, and their staff does not have any other direction from council at this point in time. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Brian Hughes in a minute to spend about 10 minutes going over it real quick, introducing a few people, and then council, it's all up to you, however you want to move forward with the project.
Thank you.
Mr. Hughes.
Mayor, council members, we're excited to be back here this evening to be considering this project and get some more direction from you as how you would like to move forward. As most of you know, but for the benefit of a lot of the people here in the audience, the project began earlier this year with a request for qualifications being issued, seeking qualified firms, followed by a request for proposals, from which Low Mountain Construction's design build team was selected. One of the things that is important to note is that this project didn't just begin this year. One of the things that I've noticed as I've researched things here, as I've been here just 5 months now, is that the facilities that are in this project have been identified for many years, including long-term capital budgets since 2007. The facilities were also included in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which was adopted by the Town Council in 2008. It was only because of the school district's desire to repurpose the library this year and ultimately the pool that this prompted the town to kind of move this process along. For those who haven't been following it, the proposed facilities are a library, which includes an activity space, an aquatic center, athletic fields, and sports courts. Since we contracted with Low Mountain, the staff and the design build team have been meeting since June. Lots of meetings, many hours have gone into this so far. We also held public open houses in July, 3 of those. On June 23rd, the Town Council authorized staff to enter into an agreement with Low Mountain Construction for schematic design. That schematic design phase was essentially completed last month, and we're ready to move on to the next phase, as Mr. Montoya mentioned. So before you tonight is consideration of the design build agreement with Low Mountain Construction for the guaranteed maximum price of $12,991,716 for the project. We have with us tonight the staff from Low Mountain Construction, as well as Aaron Babcock, who is from Heidel Architects, and Jeff Swan, our project manager, are here. For the benefit of the public in attendance and watching at home, we wanted to have Aaron Babcock come up and quickly take us through the project so that folks could see what's being proposed and talk a little bit about the uses of the facilities that are being proposed. So with that, I'll turn it over to Aaron.
Mr. Mayor, council members, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here representing Low Mountain Construction as part of the design build team. Like Brian said, we have a short presentation. Maybe. Got it?
All the IT men.
We're getting closer, Tom.
Thank you. Okay, here we go. So I do have a short presentation to give you progress on where we are with the project. The project is part of the Territory Square master plan. We are really doing a phase 1 of that master plan, but we are looking as part of our scope of work of the total 40 acres and how that's master planned and how the components that we're putting in this phase 1 affect that. The site plan for phase 1, as Brian stated, there are several components within this. The number 1 is the library and recreation facility. It sits right off of Main Street, which is on the right-hand side. There we go. Right here. This is Main Street. This is the building we're in right now. This is First Street, and down here is Heritage Park, to give you an orientation. The project consists of this library recreation complex. We've master planned for a future recreation facility, and at the corner of Main Street and First is proposed a plaza, which starts to define the Territory Square or the whole district that you're entering in as you come from the south, moving north along Main Street. The parking for these facilities is then to the north, so we have adequate parking for the library as well as additional parking for the aquatics facility. And then we do have 2 soccer fields, 2 pickleball courts, and 2 tennis courts as part of the project. How this fits into the master plan is we're looking at 40 acres that the city owns as part of the Territory Square district. What you can see here is the line right here is really, this is the phase 1 portion of the master plan. So the 40 acres is this square box. What you're seeing here is really the framework of how you'll come in and out of this district as it develops over time. We're also looking at, as part of the master plan, breaking up these elements on the 40 acres into parcels so we can assess what can fit as far as building goes and parking counts associated with it, so that there's a mixed use of avenues leading in the future as far as master planning goes. This starts to give you a sense of the building shapes as they start to fit within this master plan district. And then this gives you a sense of, if the 40 acres was developed, how our library, future rec, aquatic, and soccer fields fit within that overall vision of the Territory Square. To get a little more detail of the library recreation building, this is approximately a 28,000 square foot building. It consists of a couple of different functions that are combined together, bringing some efficiency. So we have, in the purple shape is the library component. The blue shapes that you see are shared space. The deeper red that you're seeing are the general government office and meeting areas. And the yellow space is the park and rec components of the building. What those specifically are is you have the main entry into a shared space, which consists of lounge seating, tables and chairs. It's really a common space that these functions work off of. So it's a very active area that then has access to meeting rooms that are divisible so they can become smaller areas. Rec programming rooms, there's 3 of them. They're divisible so they can be one large room or 3 smaller rooms with a kitchen and storage that works in a centrally located place off of those. This side of the building consists of the library. As you enter into the library, there's public computers, express computers, the circulation desk. If you were looking to the south, this is the children's area or children's collection, which has a craft room, staff work room, story time. We move to the north. This is the adult collection area with teen programming, digital lab, and then the staff offices. What is kind of unique about this design as compared to many other libraries that we've come in contact with is the accessibility not only from the shared side, but from the library side to access these different rooms, which just increases the flexibility of them over time so they can be used by both the library and the recreation or Parks and Rec for programming space. We're looking at the schematic elevations have not been finalized, but this gives you a general concept of what we're looking at, trying to fit it within the framework or context of the town of Florence. The aquatics facility, this is a pool complex that consists of a bathhouse that you enter in. The bathhouse has both men's and women's restroom facilities as well as office facilities and a multi-purpose room function that's available to the pool deck. As we enter into the pool, we have a beach entrance into a play structure, shaded areas for the pool area so people can sit. Then we move into more of a multi-purpose pool area, noting that we have 2 zones here. This has a seat, and this area has a seat so that you can do 2 different types of swim lessons at any given time. Adds to the flexibility of the pool. Then you have 2 slides. You have a 32-foot speed slide and a 42-foot body slide. They come down into the splash pool. Shade structures throughout the pool deck. A 25-yard competition pool and a dive well with competition diving boards. It also has then the applicable equipment in the pump house. The last thing I have to show you is the bathhouse concept. As I talked about, you have the main entry area, you do have the restroom facilities, and then a program room or a multi-purpose room for the different various activities that might program or take place there, as well as there are 2 restrooms that have exterior access so that people using the soccer fields or the tennis courts can walk over and have a restroom facility as part of the project, as well as then an area for a food vendor to pull in for pool events. With that, I'll turn it back over to Brian.
Thank you, Aaron. Mayor and Council, as we move forward, we just wanted to let you know that we have members of both the Library and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Boards here this evening. You may recall that at their joint meeting in June, both boards supported this project, and I know we have a few of those who wish to speak here tonight, a few of those board members. Again, staff is ready to proceed as directed by Council. This is ultimately your project. We're just trying to facilitate it and get some more direction from you guys. That being said, we do recommend the agreement as presented, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have at this time. We do have Mr. Farina, Mr. Montoya, and the others that have participated in this planning to this stage, so we can answer any questions at this time.
Do you have anything else further that you want to add to Brian's report? Brian, are the members of your boards, are they here when would they like to speak?
I believe our Vice Chair, Don Pinson, from the Library Board would like to speak, or Parks and Recreation Board, I'm sorry, and Denise Kohlert is from the Library Board.
Don, you want to come up?
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for hearing me. My name is Don Pinson. I live at 177 South Bush Street in Florence. This project, to say it is a little controversial would be an understatement. There's been a lot of play in the newspapers, and a lot of people apparently are opposed, and many are for. We, as a city, are getting bigger and bigger. We just annexed another 40-some hundred people, is that right? So if we choose to sit in the backwoods and say we don't need these things, then we will just be that little dried-up, dusty town that people drive through and have no reason to stop or to be interested. Or we can go ahead and have reasonable facilities here to make our town something we can all be proud of. Now, I know that parts of this community have swimming facilities, but a big part of it doesn't. And that's the part that we're in right now. I think that as a community, as a city, we need to join together and make sure that everybody has a reasonable facility, whether it's swimming or library or sports fields. That needs to happen. I saw the thing on the agenda tonight for the building that we were thinking about giving to Phoenix. You know, if we really think that we're being too grandiose here, why don't we just keep that building and turn it into a library? Or we could have a swimming pool that looks like a stock pond. Or we can be a city that we're proud of. So I'm hoping that we can find a way to do this thing that I believe that we all need. Thank you.
Don. Don, how many years have you been on our Parks Board?
Oh, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe.
In 2005, we started this process. This is when we first started it. And I thank you for your comments. I thank you for the service to the board.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Don, again. Denise, did you want to speak at this time?
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I am speaking as the chair of the board, but I'm also speaking as a citizen of this community. Some say, I have these amenities, why should I pay someone else for someone else? Just as Mr. Goldsmith said in his letter to the editor. It's called Civic Duty. It's to supply services to all residents. Some say libraries are old-fashioned. Everything is digital. Libraries are more than books. Libraries are meeting places for people and groups. Libraries are fun things being done with kids and adults. The library provides so many programs that I'd waste all my time speaking them or telling you about them. Some say we can't afford it. This is part of Territory Square, something this town has been planning for many years. This is the cornerstone. If we can't afford it now, when? Some, like myself, think this project is great. It's for the whole town, including the new people that we just asked to join our community. It will bring those people downtown and make them part of our community instead of feeling like they're out there in the hitherland. And I think that's important for this town to have that togetherness. I want to God bless all of you and hope you find in your heart to do what is best for all of the town's people. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Do you want to ask anything?
What?
Did you want to ask? Did you want to ask me anything?
How, you've lived here how long?
7.5 years.
And you've been on the library board for how long?
6.
Again, thank you very much for your service. Really appreciate it. Is any other member of either the Parks and Recreation Board or the Library Board that is here tonight wish to speak? Hearing none, we're going to go right now into public comment on those items. I will call them off as I've got them stacked up here. However they come out is however they come out. Timothy Hess.
Could we hold down on the clapping and just move along? We've never allowed that before.
Tim?
Mayor, Council, thank you for hearing me. My first public speaking in front of you, so bear with me if I ramble a little bit. I wanted to speak about the Parks and Library thing. Again, my name is Tim Hess. I'm a 20-year resident of Florence, 19 of which I've spent downtown here, and I just recently moved up to the Anthem area. One of the big considerations in choosing to stay in Florence instead of going to another community was all the amenities that were available up there. At that time, I didn't even realize that losing the library and the pool downtown was even on the table. That being said, we chose to stay in Florence as a family. My wife's a lifelong resident, born and raised here, so is my daughter. One of the things that we loved about Florence was the community, the diversity of it. We have so many people in town, and when I first came here, the big reason you were in Florence was you were either incarcerated by the prison or you worked for it. And there was really no other reason to be here. And now we live in this outstanding community where people such as myself still choose to live here, even though I work in a community 30 miles away. I did work here. I spent 5 years in the fire department. I left in 2002, and now I'm less than a mile away from a station that has a brand new ladder truck and is one of the finest facilities that I've seen, and I've been a fireman for 16 years. This facility is awesome. All the police cars seem to work. We take great care of everything else, and now we're going to do a huge disservice to our kids, the children of this community, by taking away a library, taking away a pool. When I first heard that there was even a controversy about the fact that the people were saying they didn't want it, I was blown away, absolutely shocked of how it was even a question that we needed to do this. Beyond civic duty, the people that, if you can honestly say that you don't think that we need a library or that we need a recreation center or something to give our kids to do, a place to study, a place to do homework, a place to learn, grow, stay safe, stay out of trouble, then you clearly don't have it invested. And it's my opinion that this absolutely needs to happen. I understand that there's budgetary constraints, but if there is absolutely any reason for this, that this can happen, it would be a huge disservice to let it not happen. It's in something, in my opinion, desperately needs to happen. So thank you for hearing.
Thank you. I know we all have strong feelings about the object, the topic we're talking about tonight, but can we keep the applause down, please? You all know where you stand. They know, and if we could do that so we can go on with the meeting. I've been asked by one of the council members to do that.
Well, we've never allowed it on any other thing that's come before us, so I just want to keep consistency with our meetings.
Okay. Albert Dare.
Thank you very much. I suppose Your Holiness would be out too, right? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Mayor, I wanted to give you a little seance today. I know last week, or the time we met before, someone gave their interpretation of that voting that went on, where that it really meant $5 million and they won the mayor out and the city manager out. I'm having a seance. And what it said this afternoon was that the mayor, city council, all employees get a 20% raise, okay? And rather than adjusting it for a mere $13 million, it's $20 million to have at it, okay? No, it ain't serious. I was trying to make light of that home, whatever it is, because I've only been voting in Arizona for 50 years, and I've never, ever heard of such a dumb thing. I have never in my life heard anyone say that they would prefer to have the people in Phoenix tell them what to do. No, I've never. Not even if you live right next door to them. Don't allow the people of Phoenix to control your city. I think this is an awesome project. And I'm honest with you, if I could write the check for $13 million, it would put a little crimp in my wallet, okay? So I can't do it by myself, but I have a feeling to believe that the people of Florence can do it, all right? And I forgot to give my address. My name is Albert Dare. My address is currently 24995 North Mitchell Trail, of which I'm looking forward to my new address because of number. As of October 2nd, we will be part of the town of Florence. And I believe in the future. In 1960, and I'll hurry, in 1960, we had a young president, and he said, and part of the address to the people, I choose to go to the moon in the next 10 years. Well, most of us, or some of us, hadn't the slightest idea why we'd want to go to the moon. Overeaters Anonymous always thought it was made out of cheese, but maybe that would work. But he set a goal for our country to go to the moon, and we did. And when Neil Armstrong said, one step for mankind, or something like that, that famous speech, you know what it is. We've gained so much from that one idea. I've always read, where there's no vision, the people perish. I would like to give you a new interpretation of that. Where there is no vision, the people are already dead. Okay? They're just waiting for the hearse to come by and pick them up. All right? I am very proud to be part of the town of Florence. I want you to see my Gopher t-shirt. Okay? I believe in the future of this city, and I want you to, I know it's hard on political people. The good Lord bless you and keep you, okay?
Thank you. Betty Reefer.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Betty Reefer. I live at 232 South Pinal Parkway in Florence. I've probably lived here a lot longer than some of you have even been born. I just had a birthday recently, but I can't remember what number it was. I want you to know that our library has truly served the people from the beginning when it was in the little building over here where the senior center is now, when I first started using it, to now. These people know what they're doing. There are programs for all ages. I was amazed to see little children in there taking home, checking out stacks of books that they can't even carry. These stacks of books are higher than half as tall as these children are. There are great programs for the youth. There are great programs for all ages. We need this library. I spoke against it when it went to the school, that it should not be added to that, and I still believe that. When we go up there after doing our errands in the morning and we can't get in the library because the grounds are closed to protect the children, these are our young adults who can't cross the street safely if our cars are within a mile of it. We need the library. Mayor, council members, please approve this. And we do need the pool facilities. These facilities also serve the young and the mature in this community. Carry on. Thank you very much for your service.
Betty, did you sit on the library board too?
No, I've been to several of the meetings, but no, I did not sit on the board.
I thought you did. That's why I asked.
No.
Okay.
I was in planning zoning when Mr. Quick was here.
Sorry.
Me too.
Barbara Settles?
Well, I guess I will address
What's that?
Your Honor and council members. I'm not used to speaking in a public place, and when I filled out the paper, I didn't know what it was for, and I filled it out. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I do feel we definitely need a library here. I too have participated in the library when it was over at the location of the senior center and at the high school. It needs to continue, and I think the aquatic facilities also need to be a part of this town. The programs they've had there, I think it's important for children to learn to swim. And an activity that's safe and clean for the children and for the more mature as well. Say this. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Charles Goldsmith?
Senor Mayor, my name is Charles Goldsmith. I live on 62 South Sycamore here in Florence. I was born in Florence over 50 years ago, and I've been here my entire life. And when I retired, I had an opportunity to live anywhere I wanted. But I chose to live in Florence because this is the town I love. You all have seen the newspapers. I've never written anything in them before. And only now, because I have a passionate belief that this project as designed needs to get built. Our youth in this community, particularly this side of the Gila River, don't have a nice facility to go to. This facility is to supply that ability for those youth. And of course, a library facility and the recreation building and activities itself. All of those things need to be built. I was in government for over 30 years, and part of that time I spent as a division director for the Department of Corrections. And I was involved in the compilation of their budget. And I know that if you consider the reduction of this program to something smaller, and with a plan to build it in the future, that future never comes. It just keeps getting out there further and further to reach. I've been there. I've seen it happen. I've been involved in doing it. And so it's just my belief that this thing needs to get built. You walk down Main Street right now, which I do every morning. This morning I found over 8 for sale signs in buildings up and down Main Street. Plus there was probably another half a dozen didn't have anything in them. If we expect people to invest in our community, they have to see that you're willing to invest in our community. And if we don't invest, how can we expect people to come in here? I live in Sunrise Estates off of West Butte. There hasn't been one home built in that area 6 years, 7 years. And again, why would someone want to come here? They want to come here because they see a council that's committed to its community, all of its community, no matter where you're at. And right now, the people who are in Old Town Florence need this facility. They need you to vote for it. They need you to show your support so that others can also see, and maybe we can get some more people into this town, more investment. Okay? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. John Anderson.
I'm John Anderson. I live at 2631 North Presidential Drive here in Florence. And I would just like to begin to say that I support a pool and a library. My concern is whether or not we can afford it. I know that a lot of people want this. I think we need it desperately. But I've looked at the cost analysis that was done and what was in your packet tonight. I talked to the parks or the aquatic director at Chandler, and she told me that they are running about $1.2 million a year to maintain that facility. I know somehow our finance people came up with $300,000. That's too big of a variation. I thought we were going to have some work sessions on this, Mr. Mayor. You did tell me we were going to have a work session before this came up so we could all have a better understanding. So there's just, that's my biggest concern. I'm very much support of the library, but if I look at what you just presented here, over half of that building is not the library. It's other functions. So, I think that with what we've seen now with our home rule and our budget problems, I just feel that we need to look at this a little bit more closer before we pass this thing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Damon Anderson.
Good evening. My name is Damon Anderson. I'm the general manager of the Holiday Inn Express here in Florence, but tonight I'm here speaking to you as the chairman of the board of directors for the Florence Chamber of Commerce. We at the Chamber of Commerce are proud of the many accolades and steps that the community has taken in recent years, and we're incredibly proud to be and ready to help play a role in what the future holds for our community. We need not spend much time in Florence to understand that there is a unique dynamic at play here that is uncommon to smaller communities, and like everywhere else, we have struggles that at times seem difficult in seeing a clear path that leads us to the next level as our state grows. All the while balancing out the growth with the need to preserve the rich history that is offered in Florence. This is a topic of conversation that we at the Chamber Board of Directors discuss on a regular basis and continue to strive to create new opportunities while supporting the creative ventures that our members and our other civic organizations are involved in as well. The Town of Florence has presented to the Town Council and residents of Florence plans to build a library in the community which we need, as well as a regional aquatic center that is on the topic of discussion in tonight's meeting. It is true that the price tag of this endeavor is quite high, but after reviewing the funding sources and the weighing out the positive and negative aspects of the new project, we at the Chamber of Commerce are unanimous in our support of seeing this project move forward. We as individuals and as Chamber Board of Directors work to better understand all that is needed to make the venture a success, and all agree that this project has far more positives than negatives. A new library that is built with the modern needs of the future in mind is exactly what our community needs. Libraries of the modern world are so vastly different than just books. Libraries are central access points to the cyber highway. They are designed to carry the weight of being activity centers for training, meetings, educational workshops, and so much more. The design that have been presented to the Council and the residents of Florence offers just that. A vision for what the future looks like, not just 4 walls, a ceiling, and a floor. But grant funding is also offered by the federal government, and so much of that funding is weighted into having particular community amenities, which includes a library. And our belief that the future definition of a library being much different than what's been known historically in the past is a key point to why the Chamber feels this project needs to be nurtured, fostered, and ultimately brought to realization. Even more exciting, a topic of discussion that we have conducted within our Chamber board meetings than the library are all the positive aspects that come with getting so little exposure with the aquatic center piece of the project, and just how much of an economic impact this can have for our community. So many times when I have heard people speak of the community swimming pool and how quickly the vision appears to be community swimming pool, when the fact is it's a water park, a place that families throughout the region do not have readily available, and would give so many families and residents from far north as Mesa, as far south as Oro Valley to Tucson, and definitely pull from our neighbors Casa Grande. This is cash flow coming into the community. We're giving our residents, families, and neighbors a reason to visit Florence, a reason to open their minds to the possibility of what we have to offer in our community. So many people have So many people have worked so diligently to create awareness to the outside world of the uniqueness of Florence, the beauty of Florence, and for so long we've held one true reputation, and for those who do not know anything about our community, a prison town. Just as Harold and Katie Chris have done with the Windmill Winery and bringing Florence to the wedding dance floor. Sorry, I am just about done.
Yeah, I know you've been reading fast, but could you speed it up?
Ask anyone who knows me, I talk way too much. Long story short, we feel as though this is a great, great addition to the town.
Thank you, David.
As long as we give everybody the same courtesy.
What's that?
I said as long as we give everybody the same courtesy, I'm fine with that.
Since I'm running it, I will. Alexandra Bruin.
Town Council, Mr. Mayor. My name is Alex Bruin, and when I was 4 years old, I moved to the Florence area. I started school at kindergarten at Florence K here, and I graduated last year from Florence High School. And I can just tell you, as a representative from our youth, there is nothing to do in Florence. If you want to go see a movie, you have to drive like 40 miles. If you want to go to an aquatic or a water park, you've got to drive up to Sunsplash or whatever. I know we've been talking about how much we need the aquatic center and the library, but one thing that hasn't been mentioned are the soccer fields and the tennis courts. I was a student athlete and I played soccer. Times where we went down to Heritage Park and practiced on those soccer fields. And if you have ever run down one of those fields, let me tell you, there are holes in those fields. There's no grass on them. So I'm really in favor of getting those soccer fields in for us. I remember when Anthem got built, and I was probably in like 6th grade, and they got a really cool, awesome aquatic center. And all of the kids in Florence, since we don't pay the HOA fee and we're not members, we can't go to it, we're like, really? Why don't we have something like that? So really implementing that into our community is something that we need to do. Statistics have shown that having activities and things to do in your community really will help the youth in the community not get involved in bad influences or bad destructive decisions. And I think that once we open up this library and this pool and the soccer fields and the tennis courts, this is really something that is going to be able to bring all of our youth together, and we're going to finally have something to do in Florence. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Amanda Sly.
Mayor, Council, I live at 323 South DeSoto Street in Florence. And about 5 years ago, I had the decision of buying my first house. I was really excited. I talked to all of my friends, and they said, buy out in Santan. They have really awesome rec centers and places that you can spend time with your family that you're going to build. And I was like, except rec centers can be built, hint, hint. They said, buy out in Santan because you can get twice the square footage in your house for what you're going to be paying in Florence. And I looked at them and I said, there's one thing that you don't have out there that I will have in Florence. And that's you guys. That's my council, my people who I vote for, the people I elect to represent me and my community and my family, my children. You are the people that we vote into office to do what's best for us. Now, so help me, if Santan has a town council before we have a rec center, I'm going to be so upset. Please make the decision to make sure that my investment in my home in this town was a good investment and not a poor one. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Here's a guy some people probably know, Bill Day. Yeah.
Greetings.
Good evening.
Let me get out my letter. I'm not going to read it, though. Notes. My name is Bill Day. I've lived here well over 30 years at 574 Faylis Street. I've been in business here for well over 30 years. And councils in the past have done a lot of things that I don't agree with. But have you ever seen me up here bitching and complaining about it? I know I'm not an informed person to make the decision. You folks are supposed to be informed to make the decision. So I leave it to your discretion. If you decide to do something I disagree with, I'll vote you out. And that's one thing I want to say about Florence. Florence proper people need to vote on important issues like city council, like any important issue that comes up in our community. And we don't do it. So get out, please. We're a great community. I've people in Florence I've done business with. They're honest. They're hardworking. They just don't want to vote, and it's going to have to change now that we've become so diversified in our population. Our votes count a lot. Count a lot. Look at our school override that we voted in every time to help our kids, because our kids are important to us. But when we don't vote, they're not important to everybody. And I want to say that I'm in favor of this project. I was on the Recreation Leisure Board back when it was in a one-room abandoned schoolhouse behind the Little League Park many years ago. Our biggest asset for the Rec Commission was we had a pool table. That's it. The council came to us and said, we budgeted $3 million to build a rec center. We were ecstatic. We wanted that so bad. We did the planning. We got the drawings. We got the council's approval. Shortly after that, we reappropriated the funds. We were going to build a firehouse. That was many, many years ago, and it hasn't changed today. We still stick the recreation department in whatever hole we can find. We don't give them a facility to work with. We don't give them resources. We've expected our schools to provide everything for us. It's got to stop. We got to take responsibility as citizens in the town of Florence, and we got to move forward. Prison Town. That's what we're considered. And as long as we keep shunning our responsibilities as citizens and as councilmen, that's what we're going to continue to be called. I have no problem with the prisons. They've been great to me, business-wise. But it's just not going to do the community, the people that live here, much good if we don't expand our resources. So please, please, do something right for us for a change and give us an aquatic center and a library. And that's all I have to say. Vote your conscience. Thank you.
Sandra Hemberg.
Mayor, Council, I agree with everything that everybody has said tonight, so I find that I might repeat some of it, and I won't. But what I do feel is that time is running out here. As of next June, probably, there won't be any swimming pool. There won't be any library. We can't afford not to do this, and we can't afford to sit on this any longer. Please, please go ahead and vote affirmatively for this. In Florence, we have this wonderful, colorful, fascinating history. And let's have future generations be able to look back and see that this generation of voters was able to leave a legacy in the form of a crucially needed recreation center and library. Thank you.
Thank you. Past Mayor Wilbur Freeman. Yeah, I don't know if she wants. Well, you run them out, Wilbur.
And people start to all right. Good evening, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity. This issue of the new library, the aquatic center, the rec center, the soccer fields, the tennis courts are very close to my heart. As you know, some of you know, I'm a former mayor and a council member. I do very much appreciate the work that all of you do. I've been there. I know the tough decisions that you all have to make. It's not easy. But I am here tonight to speak in favor of the new library, the aquatic center, the pool, the rec center, the soccer fields, the tennis courts. I want to see you build it all. Build all of it. It's what we need. You know, I grew up in this town. I'm a third-generation Freeman. My wife and her family, they've been here for 5 generations. We all grew up in this town. We went to school in this town. There's nothing for these kids to do. There was nothing for us to do. We had to generate our own recreation. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir a little bit here. But, you know, we did. We had to, you know, we played sandlot baseball. We learned to ski in the canal. We did some of it was good recreation, some of it was bad. I'll admit that. But I'm here tonight to speak in favor of these projects. And when you think about it, you have all the pieces in place. You've got the financing in place for the construction. You've got the financing in place for the operations and maintenance of the facilities. But even more importantly than that is you've got the community need, and that is the driving force to build these new facilities. It's the community, and that's the way it should be. The community wants it, the community needs it, and most importantly of all, the community deserves it. And one last thing. When you talk about a library and a pool and a rec center, a couple of soccer fields and a couple of tennis courts, those are the most very basic services that any city or town provides to its residents. They're basic. Those are really basic services. And as you all know, you're not building it just for today's citizens. You're building it for the future. You're building it for the future growth and development of this town. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you, Ward. Vicki, would you like anything to say as a past mayor? Well, get up there. You got 3 minutes, Vicki.
Certainly not hard of talking. I can do that pretty well. This kind of takes me back to the old days, in the 90s, early 90s, when we were building the park, our wonderful park. We ran out of money on the miserable grant that we got from the feds, so we all pitched in. I can remember when we were out there digging holes, buying trees with our own money. Bonnie Barriola can tell you more about it than I can, because she was our planner, and she made things happen. And I think we're at the point now, we worked so hard for that. We were not a very well-off, rich group, but it showed that, you know, the town will come together and do things. And Tom and a lot of other people saved us from making a bad mistake when we wanted to shut down the ballpark behind the senior center. But everybody pitched in when we took the senior center and just the seniors, and many of them from downtown, and they put in a little place to have coffee and donuts 3 times a week. And then we graduated to $125 rent on 79. And then we graduated, but what happened? We lost our little library. And it was a lovely little place, but of course the senior center is pretty nice too. So we ended up making the thing, but this is years ago. And we've been trying to get the library ever since, and at the same time, we were trying to get a new pool. But every year, all we could get together for money. And I remember when our budget was $9 million a year. Now it's almost $9 million a month. So it just takes me back those many years in around 1990 and in the 30s, 33 years. I honestly feel, and even I, after all those years on the council, didn't truly understand home rule, because we'd never had it for over 20 years, so it never came up. It was never on the ballot. And I do believe that many, many people hadn't a clue what home rule meant. Sounds good. Oh, well, we can, you know, that. But it binds us to so many things. And I think that the way we were able to progress, and so many things we lost when Walmart and the big stores came in, lost our little Main Street, which was so lovely. I do think it's time that we were able to put the money, if we have it, and I hope we have it, but I've been gone for a couple of years, and I came home listening to $19 million, found out that I wasn't still on the voting rank, so I couldn't vote, so I didn't really read the election deal. I wasn't here. And then I found out it was on the back page, and nobody really understood it. I don't know, because I wasn't here, whether there was a lot of talk about it so that they were educated. Everybody, even our own people, because remember, 20 years we'd never had.
Vicki, can you wrap it up?
I know I'm talking too long, but I'm almost done. So, yes,
ma'am.
I think it was just one of like a perfect storm when everything went wrong. And people were not really educated on things. The money sounded ludicrous, like I heard $19 million, and I couldn't vote. But I really do believe that if we could get this going, it would be the best thing for everybody in the town of Florence. And I have many friends up in Anthem, and many in Florence Gardens, and many in Caliente. I hope I still have them in the town of Florence. So yes, I am supporting it. I feel the way that we did so many things, and we did them the hard way. And we're still willing to do that, make that sacrifice.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
Marcia, did you have anything you'd like to, as a past mayor? But you've only got 1 minute and 45 seconds. Vicki took the other one.
Mayor, council, hasn't really been anything said that I agree with everything, and there's not a whole lot left to say. I feel this project is extremely important. We've done many improvements in this town. We have this beautiful new council chambers and town hall. We have the fire station. We have the new fire station out there. We have a lot of good facilities that the townspeople need. But when it seems like when it comes to the youth and the recreation for the people for this town, we've come to a screeching halt. Back when I was on the council, at the end of my term, we had money set aside that was allocated for recreation. But the council that came in after my term decided that wasn't important enough. We need a new police department, we need a fire department, which I'm not disagreeing. But it seems like we've put this recreation and the needs of the community on the back burner. And it's my understanding with conversations that the money's there. We have the money. It's not going to raise the taxes. And we need something. I had a conversation with Chuck Goldsmith at church on Sunday, which really made me think. He says, Marcia, my daughter and her family, they're moving out and they're looking elsewhere. Our daughter and grandkids, they would love to move away. There's nothing here. Nothing here. We've got to do something, not just for the youth, but for everybody in this town. Everybody would, at some point, at one time or another, would utilize this facility. And it's time we stopped casting it aside and not worrying about it. Now, I know a lot, from what I've read, the people in Anthem and the people in Florence Gardens are the ones that vote against these things. Well, they have facilities, beautiful facilities that they have, that they can use, and we can't use them, and I respect that, that's fine. But let's do something for us for a change. Let's do this for us. And Bill's right. People in the town proper, they don't vote, as everybody can see from the stats. So I guess we're going to have to rely on the council to help us out and do what's right for the town of Florence. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. I think I'd like to, at this time, call on our newly elected council member, Becky Galeen, if you have something to say.
Yes, I do. Thank you for asking me to speak tonight. I really am interested in these projects because I served as your town's finance director for 19 years. And I brought these projects along with the rest of the staff in development, watching them, knowing what a great thing this was going to be for Florence at some point in time. We have saved for many projects. In our construction tax fund, our food tax funds, our impact fee funds, we are not a large community, so it has taken many, many years to save up for these projects. You are going to have to bond out for some of these projects because we don't have all the money. But we do have resilience in this community and with our staff and administration and the council. We will make this work one way or the other. It'll be by tightening up the belts that we have here, and it will be by making debt service payments. We have some debt service that's going to be going out, and we can replace it with this other at some point in time. But I do want to mention some very personal things, and I have spoken to my children. They are young adults, and I feel that they have a good feel on what goes on. One of them works for the town. One of them works for Pinal County. They have children. One of them has children. We currently have no amenities in the Florence proper area to attract any type of development or residential growth, should I say. We have very minimal housing starts, and we have for many, many years. We have lost our contract with the school district for the library, resulting in a necessity to move the library. These projects, both of the agenda items you have on for the fitness recreation center and for the aquatic center and the library, will centralize the activities for the community. We can attract aquatic and recreational activities with other communities and school and contribute to our other businesses and revenues that are generated. These centers promote wellness and health for all ages, and especially in the summer when we cannot hide from the heat of the sun. We have to have these types of facilities just to keep ourselves healthy. This is an investment in our community and the citizens, both adult and youth, and they're for all areas of the town. And especially now that we've annexed a 4,000 plus citizens, they will need a place to go also. We ourselves are traveling to other communities for these services. That means it costs our children, our citizens, money to go back and forth for special things like Sunsplash and going here and there for acrobatics, for dance classes and such. Utilization has been low at the pool, not because of disinterest, but because of the facility and what it offers. Utilization of the fitness center is good, but it could be optimal because of the lack of space at the current location. The concern for these projects is failure of the home rule and the operational costs. By the time these facilities are constructed and operational, the town will have time to adjust its expenditures and determine the actual operation times and costs to operate. And from experience, the departments in the general fund have always pulled together and streamlined their operations when there was a need to try to compensate for additional expenses. I know this from experience. Some of these costs are included in the current budgets for recreation, aquatics, etc., that the town is prepared for the existing facilities that go against some of the costs that are currently provided in the cost estimates. Adjustments will have to be made to operational costs depending upon the utilization. And the town council is working to address the failure of the home rule option. Revenues are strong and will continue to grow for the fitness center and recreational fields. I've seen this over the years. People are very interested in fitness and being able to ball fields, soccer, whatever it should be. They're very strong. The pool proceeds will take a bit longer to accumulate with utilization and growth in the community. That will not come all at once, but it will come once these facilities are here. I am concerned because, yes, the operational costs, but I do believe that it's workable. And thank you.
Thank you. Imagine the length of the meeting when she gets on. She outdoes me. Does any other member of the audience have anything they'd like to say? No.
Chase Johnson, 432 Poston Circle. I really want this pool and all this stuff to come in because during the summer we have nothing to do here. We go to the high school pool and sit there with nothing to do, just swim around in circles. Little kids pee in the pool everywhere, so it's not that fun to stay in the same spot forever. And a library, it's a small library. Not really much to do there, just real crowded when it's real packed. And it'll make the pool goes through, it'll make more room for the high school, more room if the pool gets moved out, more room for the high schoolers to have more space. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Does anybody know if Thelma Harmon's out in the back? I hate to hear that because I would love to have Thelma here because A lot of you don't remember the old library and what Thelma Harmon did to keep that library going. The hours that she put in there for nothing, really. And I wish Thelma would have been here, but her mama did one heck of a job. Before we go into discussion amongst the council on this, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I'm sorry, but we've been going for 2.5 hours, and we need to take a break. We'll be in recess for 5 minutes. Okay, we've heard the public speak. Now it's time for the council. If you have any questions, to bring them up at this time. Tara?
My question is for Mike Farina, so I'll wait until he comes back.
Okay, somebody want to get Mike? Was Mike out there? You wearing a blue shirt. He may have went into his office. Dan, would you see if you can find him real fast? Okay, Tara, is it okay if we go on by you and then come back to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tommy?
Okay. There's been a lot of really good comments tonight, covering of a lot of what I would probably say. I think from our last council meeting, it's pretty obvious where I stand on this. At our last council meeting, I had stated that, for the last 10 years that I've been up here, there's always been the biggest criticism that I think that this council, or that any of the councils that I've been on, received has been, what is the council doing for the town of Florence? There's nothing for our kids to do. There's nothing for our adults. People have to travel out of town to do this kind of stuff. And, there's always been a plan to try and achieve this. We didn't wake up last month and decide that, hey, we're going to spend a gazillion dollars on a park and rec facility and library. This is something that several councils prior have set in motion. It's a long process to get to this point. And I'm going to go over some of the comments that were made because they're all just like scattered thoughts right now and written on this piece of paper. So. For the town of Florence, it's an anchor. It's going to be an anchor, much in the same model as Pulte did for the community out there. For something similar to what Chandler did when the high school was built there. I can remember driving into that area, and the first thing that you seen coming in was the high school and this beautiful aquatic facility. One of the other things that was mentioned too, home rule doesn't have an effect on the construction of this project. In the numbers that we looked at, the funding is there to fund it from projects that most likely won't occur because home rule didn't fail or didn't pass. So it's kind of ironic that the thing that kind of killed some things in the future is going to help to provide for this current project. Another comment mentioned earlier was the Chandler facility and the cost of operations for that being at $1.2 million annually. And I'm wondering if there was any consideration when the gentleman spoke about this, the hours of operation being modified to the demand of the facility. There's been a lot of negative on this, a lot of negative from some of the people that are running for office, maybe to create an excitement and maybe further themselves in the running. I'm not sure where they were at during the process of all of this planning. I mean, we've been working on the North End Framework project for quite some time. Like I say, there's been several meetings on this specific facility. This is something that needs to be built for the town and its citizens. Our citizens deserve it, and like the gentleman in the gopher shirt said, let's go to the moon.
Thanks, Tara, Mike's back now.
Hi, Mike. Question, a few. Home rule did not pass. How is that going to impact our budget?
Home rule not passing, meaning we will be under the state-imposed limitation, will impact our budget. We're still working through the numbers and trying to figure out exactly how much. Right now, I have an estimate as to the state-imposed limitation that we would be under for next year to be around $19 or so million. You know, looking at our current budget, it was around 55 million, not including the carry forwards. So, you know, just trying to do that math, that's, you know, quite a bit of an impact, but a lot of that impact has to do with capital projects in the various funds, utilities included.
Okay. With the carry forwards, because when I was going through the information, and I just want to preface one thing, and I apologize. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and I just want to make it very clear that yes, I am in favor of having a library and having a pool area in downtown Florence, in our core. However, one of my main concerns is making sure we can fiscally provide for it and continue to provide the services, i.e. the pool, the library, have that be open, as well as maintain the services of the town. As home rule has not passed, our budget last year was budgeted at for 14-15, $66,806,000. Now we're going to need to cut that by a lot because we're looking at $19 million approximately, as you just said. So what areas of service are we going to be cutting to town? Honestly, we can't tell you. We haven't discussed this as a council. I asked for a meeting so we could actually discuss it and have a plan so we can move forward, making sure the citizens of Florence are represented and taken care of. As I was also going through the paperwork, have we identified how we can maintain the necessary services?
Mayor, Council, Councilmember Walter, I've looked at the projected operation expenditures looking out into the future, and I can confidently say that the town can afford to move forward with that level of expenditures. In just the budget that we currently have, using existing revenues without raising taxes and also without reducing services.
But in a new budget, one that's only 19 million.
I can also say that within the new budget, yes, there will, you know, again, it's a council decision. We haven't gone that far down the path, and we will have to find those reductions in expenditures. But there are options, and, you know, just for example, and I said this when we were talking about the home rule election, a budget of about $55 million includes about $30-some million in capital expenditures. And I just used an example when I was presenting it that if all of the capital projects were eliminated for the time being during when the under state imposed limitation, then that may or may not mean that we still would have to reduce operations. It just depends on what the final number is for the state limitation.
Okay, and when I was also going through, and I quote, you know, the best estimate for annual operations and maintenance was $660,200, and it said that it would be an increase of approximately 33% to our current Parks and Recreation budget. I reflected back and identified that last year we had an increase of 19% in our Parks and Rec budget, and 33% of that would only be $528,759. So we're really looking at an increase of about 41.5%.
I haven't run that number or the calculation, but the numbers that we were looking at, it was 33% of the existing Parks and Recreation budget. It is also less than 5% of the total general fund budget and less than 1% of the total town budget.
Okay, and further reflection, as Alex Bruin had brought up when she was talking about, our soccer fields, that also extends to the baseball fields. And even with that amount of money going to Parks and Rec, those fields are still in that condition. So what kind of upkeep are we going to be able to have over at the new facility?
I would defer to Brian on that question.
Mayor, council member, we're getting ready to kind of look at our maintenance management program over at the ball fields. There's definitely room for improvement. That's one of the things I identified early on when I got here. And so there was plenty of money in last year's budget. I just don't think it was utilized properly to do the maintenance and the care that we needed to do. We're going to start doing that though, and we can extend that over to the soccer fields.
Okay, and one final question is, I noticed that there's not any money or anything of that nature set aside for, furnishings, equipment. What is your plan?
Mayor, council member, because we didn't have a final design as far as what the size of the building, the scope and things, we didn't actually plan for that furniture at this time, although we are going to hopefully be able to realize some sort of a savings throughout the project that we can do some of it. Mr. Montoya and I have talked, there may be other opportunities to pick up some of that with some other funds from this existing budget.
Now, just reflect back that CAC, when they had built their campuses with the 30% tax increase onto the residents, that was because they didn't plan for those furnishings or those equipment. So my concern is purely with the budget and wanting to make sure that we can adequately provide the same level of service that we have, especially since we've now just annexed 4,200 new residents. And, unfortunately, I know that we're known as the safest city, but we have drugs in our city. We just annexed an area that has a higher crime rate, that has known to have gangs as well as drugs. So we need to make sure that we're providing an equal level of service to all of the residents.
Anything else, Tara?
No, not at this time.
Joe?
All right. The way I'm looking at it, if we were budgeting, for 54 million, and now we're going to have to, excuse me, we're going to have to operate off 19 million. That's over a 50% cut. I mean, and we say, oh, we have the money to do it. Well, we're going to have to cut somewhere. We've always prided ourselves on not having layoffs and such, but I'm for a library, and I'm for a pool, and I'm for the new soccer fields and all that. But this complex for the library, it's over half of it is not library. It's for more offices for staff. It's part of it is Parks and Rec, and then there's a huge area that's just shared space. It's just a big area. I'm just wondering, why we can't modify this to make it a little more affordable. This cost, it says the maintenance and employees and everything per year for the library, $384,000. The aquatic center, $382,000. The fields and the tennis courts and such, that's $27,000. So that's $794,000 a year from now on, which that'll increase as time goes on because of cost of living and cost of everything. Also, with the if we do the rec center along with it, it's $13 million for the library, aquatic, and the fields. Then you add on for the rec center another $5 million at $419,000 a year for maintenance and employees overhead. So now you're up to $1 million. What would that be? $1,200,000 a year just to maintain these facilities. And, you know, had the home rule not failed, it wouldn't have, I don't, you know, we could have done it easily, I think, without having to cut in other areas. But I think, you know, I wanted to have another work session on this to see if we could modify it, make it a little more realistic. I mean, if I worked for a company and the president came to us and told the employees, well, by the way, you guys, you know, and I went out and bought a Cadillac or whatever, thinking that everything, you know, was going to be the same, and then all of a sudden we find out, oh, wait a minute, by the way, we're going to have to cut everything over 50%. Then you wouldn't be able to, you wouldn't go out and buy that. I mean, you'd say, oh, wow, I wish I'd have known that. Well, we know that now, and like I say, I'm not against this. And what is our, I don't have it in front of me, the percentage of what we spend on Parks and Rec a year of our total budget?
It was $1,602,300 budgeted last year, page 56 of your Town of Florence annual budget.
What percentage of it? What was the percentage of it? The fire and police are what, 50-some percent, and then isn't it 40-some percent goes to Parks and Rec?
I'm going to guess about 15%.
15%?
Yeah.
Goes
I would have to do the math. I don't know off the top of my head what the percentage is, but what Tara said was the expenditures, you just take that and divide it into the general fund.
Okay. Another thing I want to know that I've just been told that if we don't do this, I was just told that we're still on the hook, and I don't know how we got there because I was told that we weren't, that all we've obligated ourselves to so far is the design on this at $320,000 or whatever it was. Now I'm being told that if we don't do this project, that we're on the hook to pay the contractor whatever profit he would have made had we gone through with this project. Now, I didn't even know that we were at that point because we hadn't even voted on it. I'd like to know, is that a fact or is that true or not true? Because if it's true, I'm pretty upset.
Thank you, Councilmember Hawkins and Mayor and members of the council. I don't know who's told you that. That certainly has not been expressed to us by the proposed contractor, Low Mountain. Currently, we are in contract with them for the design of the facility. That was the contract that you authorized a few weeks back. That was $300 and something thousand. We are not in contract with Low Mountain at this time, other than for that purpose. And so, obviously, that was what was under consideration on the agenda for tonight. Low Mountain has not expressed, to my knowledge, any belief that we have some type of an obligation to them at this point that relates to other types of services. We are not in a contract with them.
Bill, if I could. Jim, under the way we went out for this project, did that obligate the town to go forward with it?
I do not believe it obligates the town to really do anything. And I believe, my recollection is that in the request for qualifications, it expressly states that the town reserves a right to do nothing if it chooses to do nothing. And so the mere fact that we had a procurement process does not obviate the necessity of having to negotiate and finalize a contract with the design-build contractor. And so, as of yet, we have not done that. And for example, Councilmember Hawkins' suggestion was perhaps that we go back to the table on this regarding the scope of the work. Obviously, that would require us to renegotiate the guaranteed maximum price sum with the contractor, which tends to suggest what I believe, which is that we currently do not have a contractual obligation to do anything regarding this project.
And if I understand you right, Bill, excuse me for interrupting you. That is your opinion, correct?
That is my opinion.
There could be an opinion on the other side of the fence, too. Is that also correct?
I do not believe so. I do not know who has told Councilmember Hawkins that.
I did.
You told him that?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what you based that on, Mayor.
From information I have before over the contract, the way we went out for it, that it put the town under liability to pay the full price or the majority of that price.
But we are not in a contract with them, so how do we have a contract obligation in the absence of a contract?
Jim, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know, but that's what I was told earlier during
Well,
the process.
I would like to have a discussion with whoever it was that told you that, because I differ heartily with that.
Okay. And Charles, do you have any comment on that?
Mayor, Council, my belief at this time is when we went out for the RFP and the RFQ, we've brought back many iterations, and I believe that the contractor may be under a belief or understanding that since we entered into a design contract with them, that we would be coming back to council for additional direction. To what they believe that would entail moving forward, I do not know that answer. However, I do believe that they anticipated doing a portion of this project, all the projects, or a piece here and there of the project. So that's my understanding.
Okay. Bill, go ahead. Thank you.
Well, another thing, with the rec part of this, which will be on the agenda after this, there's another $5 million for the recreation center part of it. So that brings us up to $18 million. So, you know, I just, you know, I think we need to take the time to try to, you know, modify this to a point that it's not going to hurt us down the road. I mean, I'm just trying to be fiscally responsible here, that's all. I've been told, well, we can bond it. Well, yeah, we can bond it, but we're going further into debt, and our budget's going to be cut over half. I'd just like to know for sure where we stand before we bite off this much debt. This is the biggest project I think Florence has ever done, besides water treatment plants or something like that. I mean, it's a big obligation, and I think the voters panicked because of on that home rule vote. I know some of the council doesn't agree with me. I don't know why else they would have voted down home rule, but that's what voters have told me is why they voted against it, was because they felt that we were just shoving this down their throat without giving it the due process that it really deserves and the study that it really deserves. And I've tried to have more work sessions, but nobody wants to do it. They just want to keep moving forward with this plan. And like I say, I just wish we could, you know, if it's not built by the time the library and the pool close to us, if we have to wait a few more months or another month, I think we should spend a few more weeks or months trying to figure out the best way to do this without leaving the town in debt. We've always prided ourselves on running in the black. We haven't run in the red. One of the only communities probably in the state that has been able to do this during the recession. And now we're going to be running in the red, I think. I don't know how we could keep from it, but I'm not a CPA, so I'm just taking staff's word for this. But I think we need to take a little more time and have a little more community input I know we had those open houses, but they weren't to discuss alternatives. All those were was just to show people pictures of what this was going to be. It wasn't a work session as such, or we didn't discuss options, and we really haven't discussed any options. This is the only plan we've had given to us. And like I say, I'm all for the library, but when over half that building that isn't even library, you know, and the library we have right now is 6,600 square feet, is my understanding, and it's taken care of the high school and the community. Now we're going to, I think it's about 15,000 square feet for the new library. That's just that part of the big building. That's over double what we've got now. I would think that would be suffice. And then, like I say, an Olympic pool with that the kids can have competition in is what, you know, that's what we need. You know, I think at this time this is a real stretch when, like I say, when we lost our home rule, and who knows when we'll get it back. I'm just trying to be realistic here. You know, I want to do things, you know, for the town. Believe me, I mean, nothing I'd love better than to see things happen. But I think we just need to be prudent on what we're doing here. That's all.
Reuben? Going back in time, back to about 1976, Florence, with this made me angry, eliminated their swimming pool to build a library. That was upsetting to me, not knowing that we were building a swimming pool and a library. So where the library is now is where the old swimming pool used to be. That was 38 years ago. So that school has been there. Suzanne's laughing because she was a senior back then. And it's interesting when you look at that, because Florence has not shown a lot of growth other than additional government buildings, additional homes that are going outwards. We're not building inwards or closing the gaps. In early 2000, we had an old gym burned down. That angered me, because that gym was built with money that was provided through Ernest McFarland during the years of the Depression, or after the Depression, with the WPA. And so Florence got to benefit from Ernest McFarland's efforts when he was in Washington, D.C. to say, we got something. This is for Jill Gamble while she's here for her history class. So it was kind of interesting to me. But once again, it angered me that we lost a gym. Now we have a bigger gym. But over the past 20 years, I mean, that gym now is 14 years old. We put it in about 2000 when I was on the school board. When you look at it, the only thing Florence has increased, we had the senior citizen that we took an old barrack that was from the old Florence camp, or Camp Florence, that was built with hay and straw so that we can turn into a senior citizen at the Little League Park. Now we have the heritage field here that we built, and that's been over 15 years, almost 20 years ago. My kids played ball there. But why do we have to have something wait 2 generations before we have growth? And like it's been talked earlier with Marcia, and looking at what Wilbur said, why do we have to wait so long a period for something new? Everything we've gotten new, like we talked about earlier, the new Pinal County Federal Credit Union, and who gets the old building? The town of Florence itself, for the government portion, not for the community. And that's where we need to grow. You know, Tom Celaya, like he explained, said, we've been saving money for this for over 10 years. This is an area of growth we've been looking for. I knew it as the old Claypool place. Then Ed Cunningham used it for farming, you know, and he just recently passed away. And he's always been for FFA, for kids, for growth. And let's use that for something for the community itself. You know, so that's why I'm saying, you know, we need to look at this and say, let's look at it for the future. When we added the addition of the high school in 2000, One of the issues we had was how big should we build it? Should we build it for now or build it for the future? And we laughed at Higley High School because they built for the future. And in 5 years, they filled that school district. We stayed small here that we had to grow and build outside of Florence proper. That's how big it got. 2001 with the addition of Walker Butte and other facilities coming in line. Now Florence High School is the oldest school site in the Florence Unified School District. And here it is once again in Florence. We can't do that to ourselves anymore. We need to continue to look and say, let's build for the future. Just like that was said by the gentleman earlier. That's what we have to go for. That's all I have. Thank you.
Valerie? I'd like to say that I'm thankful for all the people that showed up to show your interest for our town. And we have talked a lot about the home rule option. And just for informational purposes, those revenues will still be there. They're not going away. We just won't be able to access them. But we'll just have to be creative with our budgeting so that we can make sure that we provide adequate services for our community. But I just want to make a couple of points, and excuse me if I read, but I don't want to forget anything. You know, you have to write stuff down these days when you start to reach a certain age. So first, let me say I'm accountable to God for everything I do and say. And if you're offended by my religious statement, then you have a right to be. But that being said, I always try to do what's right. I'm very serious about my position on the council. I don't use it as a political pawn, and unfortunately, some people have done that. They have used politics to try to sway the voters in this community away from this project. You know, there has been a lot of incorrect information disseminated. There have been comparisons made to other communities, which in essence is comparing apples to oranges. And that erroneous information has created fear and division in our community. The goal for this project is to provide a better quality of life for Florence residents. If the building and maintenance of this project were going to bankrupt Florence, it would not be on the table. There have been accusations of out-of-control spending. It is because we have been fiscally responsible and conservative that we are able to discuss and complete this project. It has been on the table for several years, as has been stated before. This project will be beneficial to our soon-to-be new residents as well as the core and the entire town. And I realize that some of our new residents are not very happy about being annexed, but I hope they will realize that there will be many benefits to being part of our community. They will not only have top-notch fire and police protection, but access to quality amenities. I appreciate the support of those that voted for me, as well as those that desire to see me be reelected. I've had conversations with people that have suggested that I might compromise my desire to see this project through in order to obtain votes to be reelected. And of course, my desire is to be reelected, but I cannot compromise doing what I feel is best for the town of Florence, even if it means not being reelected. At least if I am not reelected, I know that I have done the right thing for the town of Florence. And then if I'm not reelected, then ultimately that is the will of God. I've also heard the comment that no other communities the size of Florence have anything like this. So why can't Florence be a trendsetter? Don't our residents deserve it? This is a facility that our town can grow into, and it's something that we need to do. Thank you.
Tom?
I'd also like to thank you for being here, and I also want to thank Valerie for stating it the way it is, because she is up for election. She can make it a lot easier for herself, but she's doing it the right way for the town. I just want to get a couple of small things straightened out. On this vote tonight, we're voting to approve a guaranteed maximum price, GMP, of $12,991,719. Is that correct?
Vice Mayor, Council Mayor, that is correct.
This doesn't include a civic center.
That does not. That is not.
Thank you.
There is a second agenda item on the agenda for you for discussion later.
Right, but it's a separate
Correct.
entirely. Thank you. Community center, over and above the pool aquatic center and the library and also the fields and everything else, would cost us an added $560 million. $5,560,000. I'm glad these two are separated. That gives the council a chance to vote the way they may need to vote. I would like to thank staff and everybody and council for doing what they've done. And it's kind of an honor to sit here tonight because there's 3 past mayors out here. There's also a lady that handled our finances for many, many years. And I enjoyed serving with them all. My time's running short. However, be aware of one thing. We may be able to solve home rule. We have to see. It won't be called home rule. It'll be called an override. But there is a way to do this with the voters if you vote in a special election. That would put us right back on normal path. Thank you.
I'm curious about a special election on correcting that. I didn't know we could do that.
Lisa, would you go ahead and explain that?
It's not on topic. I think we're going off a topic there just a little bit, aren't we?
It has to do with the money, though.
I'm trying to...
No.
Pass.
Lisa, what your opinion is, are we going off topic?
I would defer to James Minato.
Thank you, Mayor, for that question. Mayor Rankin, I've always viewed the issue of relevancy as it applies to what can be discussed in our agendized meetings pretty liberally, because I think that in the end, a liberal or interpretation of that requirement is one that allows the council to function fully as it should function in trying to make important decisions, and this certainly is one of the more important ones that has come in front of the council since I've been here. I think that your discussion of whether or not you should enter into this contract with Low Mountain Construction certainly has within it the issue of whether or not the town will have the resources to pay for the construction as well as the future costs that are going to be entailed in the operation of these facilities, and necessarily the issue of what your budget constraints are then plays into that issue. Whether or not the home rule option can be changed from what we recently received from the voters by holding another election is, I would say it's on the edge of relevance, at least as it pertains to the discussion of whether you should enter into a contract, but I think what I get from it is that you are trying to forecast whether or not the constraints that the voters have placed upon you and which you are going to have to deal with during the next budget process can somehow be changed or rectified in some way, and that issue is whether or not to hold the statutory election that is allowed under the alternative expenditure limitation statutes. So
So in other words, Jim, that's a yes.
Yes.
It's like, can we just make that a short answer?
Yes, what? We can?
I'm sorry, you should
Bill,
have
that
been
you can
using a
discuss it,
3-minute
yes.
timer, Mayor.
That you can.
Can what?
Discuss it. About what Tom was talking about what Tom was talking about.
I'd like to answer the question then. On October 6th, we're going to be having a work session with council. It's going to start at 5 o'clock. And at that time, Mike Farina, our finance director, is going to explain to us exactly what home rule, the loss of home rule means to us and how much monies we do have available. At that time, also, he's going to talk to you about the possibilities that the town does have to do an election, a special election, on the third Monday or the third Tuesday in May. And what it would be like a override election. It would allow for the town of Florence to go out and spend, in addition to, it's very specific, and that'll be a choice that council will have. And council can choose to have an election both this coming May 2015 and 2016, because the home rule option will not be placed before the voters again until 2016. State law does require, the Constitution of the state of Arizona does require that home rule option is placed on an election that has candidates. So while it's not a home rule option that will be placed before the voters, it is something that allows for the town of Florence to expend outside the expenditure limitation that's held by the state. I hope that answers your question.
Do you have anything else on that, Bill?
No, I'd like to make a motion, though, that we...
Can I say my stuff first before you do?
Go ahead, Tom.
I mean, I've given everybody else the opportunity.
Oh, you bet. Go ahead.
You know, the decision we make tonight doesn't affect just one area of town. It affects the whole town. As I've said since Pulte came in here, that I knew there was going to be disagreements between the people that live in the Pulte area. We had the same thing with Florence Gardens area back in the 80s. And we all come together as one. We all come together as Florence, Arizona. And we all be together and we fight together and we're going for it. Our new neighbors that we've just brought in to the north of Pulte will be able to take advantage of this. They will also be able to take advantage of the upcoming election to make their decisions. I take a look at this as something that's bringing the community together, not separating it. I look at this as a way for the kids here in Florence core to do something good. I also take a look at it as a possibility of something happening to the south of us, and maybe some development will go on there now that we have a destination point to come to for them, so that they don't have to put in the recreation facilities, and that they won't need to because it's here. I've also been told that we won't have to raise taxes in order for this to happen. I believe that is correct. Tell me if I'm wrong on that, Mike. This way, our tax rate, our property tax rate, personal property tax rate won't be going up. There's no new taxes. We don't have to. If I didn't believe that, coming from our management and our finance director, this may have been a different story. The school would love to have a nice pool to put on their swimming meets. Whether we like it or not, the school and the town, it's all our money. It's all taxpayers' money, and we all live here, whether it be spent on the school or whether it be spent on the town. It's the same people. I mean, we just don't have different people doing that. The town of Florence is not in debt. Period, end of story. We don't owe anything. There is no debt at this time. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
We have some outstanding purchases that we have made as far as the property, the Giles property. We have some there.
Right, and then there's the WIFA loans for the...
But that's all covered by revenue
It's
generated.
all covered by revenues.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. So
correct.
we're not out in big debt. Tara, there was a meeting scheduled. I've been trying to get a meeting scheduled for the home rule discussion. Lisa can attest to it, that I've come up with 2 or 3 different numbers, and for some reason, all the council can't be there. And I think it's very important that the whole council be there to understand the ramifications of home rule, of the home rule issue not passing. We have finally set a meeting for October the 6th that I would hope that every council member can make, because I do believe it's very important for you to get the full picture of where we're at. I've been able to arrange my schedule. I would hope that you, if that October 6th date is a conflict, that somebody, you can arrange your schedule to it. Bill brought up the deal of the 55 million and the 19 million, between what the 55 million. And I have a question on that. The 55 million that you talked about earlier, Mike, does that include the capital improvement projects?
The $55 million does include all capital projects throughout the entire town budget. It also includes grant funds that would be exempt from the state limitation. It also includes the HERF fund, which would also be exempt from the state limitation.
So taking those two, the HERF money out and the grant money, or whatever it is, what does that actually bring down that 55 to, approximately?
Looking at the budget, I don't have an exact number because the numbers that are in the budget summary total $66.8 million. Some of those monies include carryover money, but just for example, of the $66 million, about $10 million of that is carryover from the prior year. I believe the highway user revenue fund is about $3 million, and the grants fund was about $3.5 million. So I would say roughly $6.3 million.
So you're cutting off six point off that?
From the 55 million, correct.
And the 19 million was general fund money only, right?
The 19 million is the total limitation for the whole town budget.
But some of the things under the home rule are not covered by that, correct?
Correct.
The HERF money?
Correct. The HERF money and grants, for
So
example.
when we talk 55 to 19, which is 36, I did go to school up here. That's 36 million. It's really not 36 million.
Correct. If you look at the amount of that it involves capital projects, which in our current budget is quite a bit, the majority of that is capital projects.
So we're not talking a difference of 36 million between, if we have to go by the 19 million compared to the 55 this year.
It would be, just for, again, for example, I don't know, what the decisions will be regarding the town budget, but let's just say, for example, that all capital projects were eliminated while we were under home rule, then there would be a smaller range from $0 to maybe $2 or $3 million in operations that would need to be reduced.
Yeah.
And those are preliminary estimates.
Going back to a comment Bill made on the share space and the project. If I understand this right, that share space is open, that's not under roof. Is that correct?
It is under roof.
Then I'm looking at two different things. It says Interior Plaza.
Yeah, it's a big area.
It is, Mayor, council members, it is an interior plaza, but it does have a roof over it. It accounts for, again, the common space that Aaron could probably explain it better, but it allows us to not have to put everything into the library. By sharing that space, it allows for a bigger facility for both the recreation and the library. So,
Is it air conditioned?
yes.
So okay, so that's where I was getting off on that, because so in other words, anybody could use that.
Correct.
Any department in the town, we could also be taking a look at it to do other things in with the outside agencies.
Absolutely.
Okay. If I understand from the contract right, and with the failure of home rule passing, we've got to get this project done, and we have to have it paid off by June 30th. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor. Carry forwards of the budget into the fiscal year, which we would be under state imposed limitation. Any amount that is not complete by June 30 and carried forward would be subject to the limitation.
I listened to the people talk tonight. I was proud to see them show up. Seemed like about the only time we can get people to come to our meeting if there's some sort of controversy. I wish we had this ongoing with this many people in attendance at our council meetings to see what the council actually has to do and decisions have to be made. I'm going to go back kind of with Ruben. Back where the library is now, that's where we used to swim. Back where the gymnasium now is, the classrooms for the high school, where the swimming pool is, was the football field. I mean, we can go on back, or baseball field. I can go back in that far. Have we done anything for the kids? Well, yeah, we have, but have we done enough? That's the question. In this facility, from what I'm seeing, is we're hitting all age groups, from kids, teenagers, senior citizens, like I'm going to be one of these days. This is a decision this council make that's going to affect everybody. And it's not going to affect your pocketbook. Let's hope. The way the figures are, we should be okay. I just thank everybody for coming tonight. Becky, thank you for your input. All the old mayors. I'm sorry, Marcia.
Mayor, well, whenever you're finished, I've still got something to say.
Okay, Bill. I want to thank everybody for coming out, and I think that the council appreciates your input, and we will take it under consideration, the input brought by the citizen. Go ahead, Bill.
Yes, you know, you were talking about different parts of Florence not getting along and all that. Anthem voted for home rule. They didn't vote it down. That was the core of Florence and Florence Gardens that voted down the home rule. So Anthem did not vote down the home rule. I want people to know that. So, but I make a motion that we table this and look at it to maybe do some modifications to make everybody feel comfortable, our new citizens, our old citizens, everybody. I make a motion that we table this till 10/6.
I'll second.
14.
I'll second. That will give us an idea where we can have a work session and finite our budget to ensure that we can continue to provide the same level of service to the citizens.
We have a motion and a second to table this until October the 6th. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hawkins?
Aye.
Councilmember Walter?
Aye.
Councilmember Woolridge?
Nay.
Councilmember Montano?
Nay.
Councilmember Celaya?
Nay.
Councilmember Vice Mayor Smith?
Nay.
Mayor Rankin?
No.
Motion fails.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve the design-build contract with Low Mountain Construction, establishing the guaranteed maximum price of $12,991,719 for the design, development, and construction of the library recreation complex.
Second.
I rise to parliamentary inquiry for one moment. Are you choosing, I would like to add to that option 2 regarding the bonding issue? Because there's 2 options listed. The first option in the agenda item states that we would be utilizing the impact fees and the funds. The second, or no, option 1, because option 2, Lisa, can you verify that this is correct, is where we would need to go out for bonding. And Charles, you informed us that we do not need to go out for bonding. We have enough money.
Councilmember Walters, Mayor, Council, the document before you all, if passed by council, it would be existing fundings. If council so directed, staff could be bringing back a document for the additional money for bonding. However, at a minimum, and I would defer to Mr. Reeder, I would recommend council in the next month or 2 adopt a resolution that would allow the council to reimburse themselves if there is a foreseeable issue and bonding needs to occur and that cash is needed for another purpose. Now, that could be done by council in the next month or 2, and whether it's this council, the next council, or a council in 3 years, that option would always be available, and I would recommend that at least at minimum. But that's not on the agenda tonight.
So is there money available right now without bonding?
Yes. That is 100% available.
That is what I choose.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the expenditures limitation of $12,991,719 and to use funds available in the capital project budget. Discussion on it? Anybody have any discussion?
And you did say that there's the ability to go to bonding for this in the future and change, correct?
Councilmember Saleh, Councilmember, yes, absolutely. And I'd recommend at a minimum, even if council does not want to use bonds at all, but would adopt a reimbursement agreement later on, so in case it's needed.
Thank you.
I'd like to have Mark Reeder come up to the podium. The reason I'm asking Mark to come is I have to go back to something I can relate to is if you have $1 million and you want to build a $1 million home, do you spend your whole million, or do you go out and do you finance part of it and keep a cash reserve on hand? And I think that's kind of what Becky was saying earlier when she made her presentation. And Mark, tell us about the interest rates on bonds right now and how easy it is to sell or not to.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Good evening. Mark Reeder with Stifel Nicholas, and as you're aware, we are the town's financial advisor in connection with a possible transaction.
Mark, can I get you to speak up? Our speakers up here aren't working.
Okay.
A couple of us have a harder time hearing.
They're working everywhere but that microphone.
Testing. How's that? A little better? Okay.
If you talk that loud, we're okay.
Yeah, I can talk, as you all know, I can talk louder, which I'll do. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if the town would choose to move forward with the sale of bonds, because you don't want to necessarily draw all of your cash balances down, or you don't want to draw them down to the extent that this project would require the town to do, if the town were to consider bonding, I guess the question the mayor asked me is, what's the bond market like, and if the town were to issue bonds, kind of what's your cost of capital? I think as you're aware, we're at not necessarily at historical lows. We reached some historical lows back in 2012, but nevertheless, we're still at very, very low rates in the bond market. My guess is, and as you all know, if I could predict interest rates, I would not be here right now. I'd be somewhere else. But if you were to issue bonds in today's market, say a 20-year level debt service type transaction, you probably would borrow in the high 2%, low 3% range. Now the markets are a little jittery right now. We're seeing some little pressure on rates, I think, as you're probably reading in the paper right now. But if we were to access the market today, my guess is you'd be high 2s to low 3 range. So I just want to give you that from a historical perspective.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Mike, on the money, and let's just say that we didn't spend it all, that we had some money. What interest are you earning on the town's money at this time?
About 1.5% accumulated. There was an analysis that was done on, let's just say we had $5 million, comparing the $5 million on what the interest that would be paying on these obligations versus $5 million sitting in the bank over the same time frame. Conservatively running those numbers, meaning a lower interest rate that the town would be earning on $5 million in cash versus the estimates that were provided for the interest rate on the obligations, with that $5 million sitting in the bank would earn more interest than the interest that we would be paying on the obligations.
Okay. That was my concern of spending the cash. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and that's why my question for having the ability to do that at another time, we still have that ability.
Well, I think that'll come up in the next item. We can talk about it on the next
Call
item.
for the question.
I'd like to make one more statement, being as everybody's still making statements. I would hope that if we go for bonding, that we would put it before the voters.
Point of order.
I know that legally we don't have to, but
Bill, Lisa, what's your point of order?
I was telling Mr. Renato that there was a call for the question.
Yes, and a call for the question has to have a second.
It does have a second.
Second.
Okay, well, never mind. I tried, whatever. I'm just trying to say what I think is the way we should.
Okay.
Whatever.
I think your point's been well taken, Bill.
All right, okay.
I think everybody had. Okay, at this time, we have a motion and a second. The question's been called for. Call for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Montano?
Aye.
Councilmember Salaya?
Aye.
Councilmember Woolridge?
Aye.
Councilmember Walter?
Nay.
Councilmember Hawkins?
Nay.
Vice Mayor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Rankin?
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Motion passes. Go to the next item, please.
New business, item C, discussion approval, disapproval of authorizing staff to issue a request for qualifications and/or proposals for the proposed fitness and recreation center.
Who's going to take it, Brian?
Mayor, council members, at your work session on July 31st, you asked us to look at the possibility of bringing a fitness center and recreation center in addition to the projects that we just discussed. Those were outside of the scope of work, and so it required us to do a little bit of research and get some ideas on some cost estimates. As you can see in your agenda item, those costs varied anywhere from about $5 million to about $10.2 million based on information we received from some of the architects that worked on previous facilities in the valley. There's also we also estimated a cost of approximately $420,000 to operate that per year. So those are just some estimates at this time based on the direction you gave us at that work session. And if you'd like to move forward with that, unfortunately, we can't make that as part of the existing project that we just approved because of the procurement laws. We would have to go back out and do an RFQ and an RFP process, just for exactly what we did for this project, in order to comply with those alternate procurement methods for design build. So with that, we will proceed as the council would like us to do.
Of course, some of that cost could be cut down because of the people that were already working here, maybe.
Potentially, Mayor, it could.
I'm not looking at nobody back there. You know, this is something when we talked about it, bringing in our recreation all into one area, bringing that fitness center down off of Main Street, putting it in here, putting up a facility on there that we could either have a concrete or wood floor for a basketball court and volleyball courts for the kids here in town. Club sports are becoming very popular nowadays. They're looking for places, and the clubs have to pay for the utility or the use of the facilities. But I believe, in my opinion, that to make this whole, and as Mr. Salaya said earlier, we may just be able to build the building and let it set, but it'll all be done at one time, or close proximity to one time. And I think it's a way to go as I would like to see a motion, and if somebody is willing to make it, to go out for the RFQ and the RFP on this.
Well, we're going to have some discussion first, or what?
Well, I just said, yeah, you can go ahead and talk. I just made my opinion, Bill. You go ahead and talk.
Well, I can't see building a building and having it sit there vacant and deteriorate. If we're going to do it, you know, that's...
Well, I'm just saying that was one of the options that was brought up to me.
I don't think it will hurt to go out for the RFQ. If we can't afford it, then we won't build it. So I think we need to have that information before we can make an educated decision.
What will this cost us to go out to the RFQ?
Councilmember Hawkins,
I don't
Mayor.
see that in here.
Council, it's minimal to no cost. It's just staff. We're the ones that are going to draft the documents, and then we'll shoot out an RFQ over the 30 days. There's no cost.
Wow.
You know, I would like to note that the prior vote that we just had was never brought to an RFQ, so thank you for bringing this one to an RFQ.
It was initially.
No, we never voted on an RFQ. When I asked our town manager about it, he had said that it was because when we were talking about no longer being able to utilize the library and the pool at the school, staff went out and did that without bringing it to town council vote.
Okay, we have a motion.
We don't have a motion yet, but I had a comment also regarding the earlier vote, and just to add that if we do go out for bonds on the previous motion, the previous item that we had on here, it could free up the ability to use some funding towards this project. So there's a way that we can move some things around to possibly make this work if home rule doesn't become an obstacle. So, and I'd like to make a motion to approve proposed fitness or RFP for proposed fitness and recreation center.
RFQ, isn't it?
RFQ.
I second it.
Any other discussion? We have a motion to go for an RFQ on the recreation facility addition. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item D, discussion, approval, disapproval of entering into a contract with DVA Construction, Inc. for sidewalk and asphalt concrete improvements on Willow and Central Street between Adamsville Road and the high school parking lot in an amount not to exceed $274,346.41. Mr. Costa?
Yes, Vice Mayor Smith, Town Council. Basically, what this is approval to, we're asking for a motion to approve a contract with DBA Construction for sidewalk and roadway or asphalt concrete improvements on Willow and Central Streets between Adamsville and the high school parking lot in an amount not to exceed $274,346.41. Basically, that area between on Willow and Central, to which includes 22nd Street, is a access way for ingress and egress of pedestrians, primarily high school students, as well as the need to provide some traffic calming in the area. This leads from the high school parking lot to Adamsville. There's such that there is a need for those sidewalks for pedestrian safety and welfare. This action will authorize town staff to complete this widening and rehabilitation program in accordance with a alternate bid procedure and cooperative purchasing provisions of the town's purchasing manual. We would piggyback basically on the City of Peoria contract number ACON 37511A. And basically what that allows, it allows another entity to enter into the same contract provisions if the alternate procurement method of purchasing is provided. We requested a bid and a proposal from the successful bidder for that contract, which was DBA Construction, and I've requested allocation of the money to two separate capital projects funds, one being for sidewalk work associated with Fund 318 and another for roadway work associated with Fund 322 for the total of $274,346.41. The traffic calming would consist of 4 speed humps. These are...
Could you get closer to the microphone?
I'm sorry.
Well, it's just so people.
These are 4 speed humps, both 2 on Willow and 2 on Central. They're approximately 12 feet wide, 3.5 inches high, and what they do is they slow down the traffic. It basically acts as 2 speed bumps within a 12-foot period. And they're at 1/3 points between the high school parking lot and Adamsville Road. This would slow down that traffic before they hit the intersection of Adamsville, which has been a historic problem since they put in the high school parking lot. And basically that sums up the program.
Any other questions? Need a motion?
Make a motion to approve contract with DBA Construction for streets on Willow, Central, between Adamsville and High School parking lot, amount not to exceed $274,346.41.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve a contract with DBA Construction not to exceed $274,346.41. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Been here too long. Motion carries.
Item E, discussion approval, disapproval of entering into a contract with Decorative Paving Solutions, LLC for crosswalks and asphalt concrete improvements on Main Street between Ruggles and 12th Street in an amount not to exceed $48,500. Mr. Costa?
Yes, basically, Mayor Rankin, Vice Mayor Smith, Town Council, this is a motion to approve a contract with Decorative Paving Solutions for both crosswalks improvements and asphalted concrete improvements on Main Street between Ruggles and 12th Street, an amount not to exceed $48,500. These streets are basically main access ways for ingress and egress of pedestrians as well as traffic, and they provide the necessary high traffic visibility that is required. They are in need of enhancing or highlighting the additional crosswalks. And what we have done is basically, it breaks up the monotony of the streets. Highlighted crosswalks is basically an extension of the pedestrian realm and commercial locations. Instituted crosswalk markings and also the entire intersections. It's not only a safety measure within a crosswalk, but it's not deemed a safety measure within the crosswalk. So transverse high visibility markings are required, such as in the bands that are on the outside surface of the crosswalks. The streets and commercial areas are important to the town. The entryways of the residential to higher volume streets are also important to town, which is Main Street from the side streets. Mid-block crossings will be enhanced via treatment and contrasting with contrary materials. Basically, the FHWA, Federal Highway Administration, concludes that this higher visibility crosswalks has a positive effect on both pedestrian and driver behavior, safety basically. And the use of the transverse markings, which is the bands circumventing the crosswalks, will allow this high visibility to occur. They're used in addition to the colored or textured pavement that we do have in place. There's more reflectivity throughout the day and night. Basically, we had done this project last year at about this time, and what we had done was highlighted the intersections and provided a crosswalk and the bands for it. And now it's time to highlight those, get rid of some of the antiquing because it creates a darker visibility. So what we've chosen to do is basically the intersection themselves is to sand them down and seal them. This will bring back the natural red color, a more reddish tone to the intersection, and 4 coats of sealant will handle a glossy type surfacing on it for additional visibility. The crosswalks themselves will be maintained the same manner with the same planking device, with the same color. They also would be sanded. and covered with a full culture sealant and enhancing that color. The bands, which was darker in color, that basically contrasted with existing concrete in place, will be changed in color. We're going to invoke a higher visibility color, basically a gold tint, or what they call a desert buff. And what this does is we are going to grind down the bands, the 1-foot bands on each side of the crosswalk, grind them down, recoat them with a different color or higher visibility color, and this is visible at the intersection of 12th and Main Street. We did some color testing, we did some retroreflectivity analysis in the day and night, and determined that this visibility will enhance immensely the crosswalks to the point that the reflectivity is visible if you were going, I think it was about 35 to 50 miles an hour on that with low beam lights at night and throughout the day, no matter whether or not it's a bright day or the sun is shining or not. So that's our intent, is to improve those intersection highlights, bring out the color of the red, enhance the crosswalks visibility, and have a safer crosswalks. We would like to do that with, in accordance with the rehab capital projects in the amount of $48,500. And this again would be a piggyback contract with Decorative Paving Solutions, who has a contract with the City of Scottsdale.
Thank you, Wayne. Any questions? You can't sit by Mark anymore. You're starting to, well, he's starting to get as long-winded as Mark.
Sorry.
Did you have anything else, Wayne?
No. No, sir.
Didn't think so. Any questions? Need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the contract with Decorative Paving Solutions LLC for crosswalks, asphaltic, concrete improvements on Main Street between Ruggles and 12th Streets in an amount not to exceed $48,500.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve a contract with Decorative Paving Solutions LLC not to exceed $48,500. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Second call to the public, same things in place. Got 3 minutes to speak if you have something to say. I knew it. Come on up, Ruth. I knew she couldn't sit there the whole meeting without saying something. Oh.
Ruth Harris, Florence.
You got to speak into that mic, Ruth.
Okay. Ruth Harrison, Florence, Arizona. Good evening, Mayor and Council. In the future, I suggest that the public be included early in the planning process for the kinds of projects that you've discussed tonight. For example, if the public had been consulted and listened to early in the design of the Main Street crosswalks, you might not have had to vote tonight to approve spending an extra $48,000 to add white stripes to the crosswalks. The public needs to be included early in the yearly budgeting process as well. I agree with comments that were made by the council at previous meetings. There needs to be more communication among elected officials, staff, and the public. There needs to be more opportunity for residents to take a constructive part in the direction the town goes and in the decisions that are made along the way. And we all need to strive to cultivate a culture that encourages and allows all of us to work together in the best interest of the entire community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other member? Okay. Peter, come forward.
Honorable Mayor, members and council, Peter Kaluris, Mount Athos Restaurant. I just wanted to thank you all tonight for having a vision for Florence. I believe it's something that this town has been lacking for a while, or that you have been working on for a while but not actually put into motion. If budgeting is a problem, if due to the home rule you cannot make it happen, we have volunteers volunteer hours at the high school, and the kids need to get some volunteer hours to make it work. As a citizen, I already work 90 hours a week as a business owner. As a citizen, I'm willing to give you guys 6 hours once a month at least on a Sunday, if that's what it's going to take. But I understand your concerns, Tara, Mr. Hawkins, very much. They're very valid concerns, but we need to focus on the future of our children, and the money will come. The money will be there 2 years from now when home rule gets reinstated. That money's not going anywhere. That money's still going to be there. For a year, it's going to be tough. If we budget it out correctly, it's not going to be built by next July, so we have to work it for 1 year on a very slim budget. That's all it is, 1 year. And we have to let the people know what home rule is. We weren't informed on what home rule was. People didn't know. You know, we need that transparency in the communication between you guys, the elected officials, the people all sitting down right here. Come out into the community. Come to our chamber luncheons. Come to all the different events that we have going on and communicate with the people of this town. I saw tonight members of Anthem, Florence Gardens, the Core, and even Oasis standing up together in unison saying this is something that we need. We can make it happen. We could work together, and I think we need to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Any other member? Sit down. Call to the council. Tommy.
I think I've pretty much said enough on that topic. What I do want to mention, though, is I want to recognize our board and commission members, especially at this time. I noticed in the paper we had lost Mr. Madden earlier this week, and he was an outstanding participant in our historic district, and he's really going to be missed. It's difficult to get that public participation in our boards and commissions. It seems like a lot of times it's the same people at the different meetings. They just change hats. And I just wanted to recognize him and say that he will be very much missed.
Ruben?
I don't have anything tonight.
Tara?
I do. Just in closing again, you know, the vote has happened, so now we are moving forward. I really do wish that we could have held off until October 6th, just so we could have made sure that our budget is solid. Peter, I appreciate your comments, and you know, I care a lot about the kids, especially in our community, but my intentions are to make sure that we can move forward. And in one final comment, Charles, for your manager report, if you could once again just attach it so that way it's linked out to the public, because they want to know what you're doing. And that communication, you know, it's wholeheartedly. It has to come between staff to council, and it needs to be transparent with the people.
I agree. Absolutely.
Bill?
Well, I have nothing other than now that the project's moving forward, I hope there's no more delays and we can move right along. But I want everybody to know the reason I voted against it was because I thought we could, you know, spend a couple of more weeks and check out our options, but that's not going to happen. But believe me, I'm for Florence moving forward. Anybody that knows me knows that. But I just don't think it's a prudent thing to jump out and do something like this when we don't even know where our financial future is right at the moment. So, you know, we can all guess at, well, we might be able to do this, we might be able to do that. I'd like to know what we really can do before we start spending this kind of money, but it's done, so that's all I have.
Valerie?
I'd just like to also express my condolences to Tom Madden's family. He truly was an asset to our community, so let's keep that family in our thoughts and prayers.
Tom?
Tom Madden's funeral will be up at the Arboretum. I believe the Chamber of Commerce will have the date and time on that. The 29th?
Or 28th?
27th. I think it's the 27th.
Chamber, where are you?
It's a Saturday, right?
It's
Yeah.
on a Saturday, yeah. Tom Madden has done a lot. He's got 2 daughters, one in California, one here. But he volunteered more than you can believe. It was just amazing. And with the Arboretum, he did a lot. He belonged to the Florence Chamber of Commerce, Coolidge Chamber of Commerce, Superior Chamber of Commerce. You name it, he belonged to it, and he helped out a lot. Lions Club, I remember that one he belonged to, and also on the Historic Board. So he's done a lot for this town, and to lose him is going to be tough on all of us. Thank you.
I'll echo a lot of the sentiments about Tom. Not only did he do everything that you guys said he did, but if Tom liked you, he was a friend. And friends are hard to come by and stick with. The one thing was brought up tonight I wanted to bring up about the buildings on Main Street. Thanks to the fire department, if he wakes up over there, with the hiring of a fire marshal, we have finally started doing something down on Main Street to get some of these buildings, these vacant buildings, headed back towards getting up into code. Tom and I have seen, I don't know if anybody else has seen it, we had 2 buildings that have been cleaned up this week, or last week and this week, right here on Main Street that have been vacant for years. So we're starting to move. If you own a building, I'm sorry, Jim. If you own it, I think you've got an inspection coming up here pretty quick too, don't you, with the fire department? You've got an arrangement with them to come in. We want to make Main Street viable again. With the addition of the park that we just, and the library where we did tonight, using the fire department to assist the people, not to go in there and roughshod them, but to assist the people in bringing their buildings up to code and to standards here in the town. That's what we're going to do. If we have to get tough, we'll get tough. It's time. But we don't want to go out and get tough if we don't have to, if we can get the cooperation out of them. I myself would like to thank the members of the council for your vote tonight on what I think is going to be one of the things that help put Florence back on the map, or further up the map. Let's remember that the end of our nose is not a long way into the future. Let's look beyond to make Florence what we all want it to be. Need a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and second to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming.